Greetings, everyone. Welcome to GameFace, episode 418, but not just GameFace 418. We're also doing our SIFTD Video Game Fantasy League draft today, and of course, my number one competitor for that, like every year, is Matt Keil. What's up, Matt?
Yes, one of one.
You excited for the draft?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It feels like we had a lot less to work with this year.
It's I don't know if you guys have started figuring it out or not, but you basically are going to be picking games from like the first 3 or 4 months of the year. The good news is there's a lot of them.
Yeah, there's enough of them.
There are.
But there's a point where you're like, well, we're going to know by July, pretty much.
Yep. Yeah, it's an interesting year because, as we've said before, everyone's afraid of Grand Theft Auto 6, so nobody's announcing release dates for their game. They're waiting for Rockstar to announce what they're going to do.
Or they have a system launching and they haven't told anyone what their games are.
Right.
So it's
So we're going to get to that. First, we're going to do an episode of GameFace, and it is the new GameFace-ish. Next week will probably be the big week where we debut a lot of stuff because we had to do an episode of the show today plus our draft. It's a lot of pre-production work that I had to do. So next week is probably when you'll see all the big changes, new graphics, probably new camera angles, and some other stuff that we're going to do for the show for 2025. But we just needed to get through this week. It was a lot of work getting ready for today. In fact, I got here to Matt's an hour early today to just set up because there was so much to do just for today's show. So we're going to do an episode of GameFace 418. We're going to talk about the Nintendo Switch 2 debut. We're going to talk about PlayStation canceling even more games as a service. In fact, another one was canceled this morning. Did you see that?
Yeah. The Horizon.
Yeah.
And nothing of value was lost.
We're going to talk about that, and we're going to preview PlayStation 5 in 2025, give you a good idea of all the software that's coming down the pike for that in the next 12 months. We have a bunch of other fun topics today. It is going to be an awesome show. The show is probably going to last an hour 45, 2 hours, and then we'll break down for literally like 2 or 3 minutes and get right back up and ready to do the SIFTD Video Game Fantasy League draft. Also, by the way, and I don't want you guys to leave, but right about now, the SIFTD Fantasy Challenge is live. So you want to head away from our stream just for a minute. It is up at siftd.net right now. There's a link there where you guys can go and make your picks. I highly recommend that you wait for Matt and I to do our draft before you do your draft, because I think we'll provide a really good lay of the land for you as far as like which games you should pick or ones you should stay away from. It's probably a good idea just to wait till the end of this show to go make your picks, but you can do it now if you like. And if there's people on the website right now that aren't watching the stream, they can start. It doesn't matter if you get in first. It doesn't matter what order you make your picks. As long as you get them in before the deadline, you'll be fine. And the deadline's going to be like 2 weeks from now. So you have plenty of time. Just sit back, and enjoy GameFace 418. I think we have a great show for you guys. How has your week been, Matt?
Yeah, it's all right.
It was good until yesterday, right?
Yeah, I don't know. My back's been giving me trouble. So
I told you I just had the same problem. I came back from the holidays. My back was a disaster for an entire week.
Well, this is from that car crash from like 18 years ago.
Really? You're starting to have feelings from that now?
No, I've always, every once in a while, it has acted up.
I didn't know that, actually.
Yeah, well, it's not like I go around telling everybody.
Yeah.
But like, it's been, since, it was twinging like on the last show. Like, so it's been like a week of just like, this isn't getting any better. And of course, it's like, it goes up the side and it wraps around the front sometimes. And it's really kind of like stinging in the front this time. So of course my paranoid brain is just like, whoa, liver failure, you know.
All right.
Like it's, you know,
you go to the extreme.
Oh yeah, I have all the catastrophizing thoughts of my mother, and so I'm sitting there just like
catastrophizing.
Yeah.
I like that word.
So I got to sit there and just be like, you know, I'm just like, I don't know what this is, and I got to sit. Maybe I'll do that. And like, it's like a little voice in the back of my mind. It's like, pancreatic cancer, you're gonna be dead by July. I'm just like, you know, it's like, it never stops.
Yeah.
And between the fires and, you know, the fall of democracy and and all that, like it's not been a great week for anxiety loops.
Yeah. Like I said, I had a bad back for the first week I came back from the holidays, and it didn't matter what I did. I couldn't get better. It just, and then one day I woke up and it was gone. I didn't do anything. I didn't take any drugs. Nothing. It just disappeared.
Well,
so
thank God for
getting old sucks, people. That's all I can say.
Thank God for Dynasty Warriors Origins.
Yeah,
gives me something to distract myself.
Yeah, we'll be reviewing Dynasty Warriors Origins in next week's show, along with maybe one or two other games. The end of January is actually okay it was the first 3 weeks of January where there was just nothing. And I don't blame publishers. Like, I totally get it. It's like you're waiting for everyone to kind of get back into the groove. Although there are a lot of gift cards out there waiting to be spent. And maybe it's smarter if you actually put out a new game maybe the first week of January when all those cards are floating out there.
Maybe not the first week, but like early.
Yeah.
Like, it's not a bad time.
Yeah, you could maybe cash in on those. So anyway, we have a great episode. We can't really screw around because there's so much to get to today in our stream. Again, we're doing the show, then we're doing the draft. But overall, the overall time should be around the same amount of time as our usual streams are on Tuesdays. And we're here every Tuesday at twitch.tv/SIFTD at 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern. A couple housekeeping things before we get going. I already talked about the SIFTD Fantasy Draft we're doing. I talked about the SIFTD Fantasy Challenge that you guys are going to do. Again, that's up right now, but I would not rush over there to do it. I would wait to watch our show. And then a final note is that on Thursday, there is an Xbox Developer Direct that is happening. It's going to focus on 4 different games. One of them is a secret. South of Midnight is one of them. What was the other? Anyway, there's like 4.
I didn't look too closely.
There's 4 games that are going to be in that, and that'll be on Thursday. If you go to SIFTD Every Day, obviously we'll have it curated there. You guys will be able to watch it on SIFTD if you want to. If you just are a daily user of the site, which you should be, you're just taken care of. We take care of that stuff. You don't even have to hear this because you know that we're going to make sure all the hot stuff is in front of you. That's what SIFTD does. So anyway, on Thursday, some big stuff coming from Xbox. At least I hope so. Again, there's one secret game there. They're saying it's like a Japanese IP that's been dormant for a while. Whatever that
Ninja
means.
Gaiden?
That would be awesome, man. I would lose my mind if there's a new Ninja Gaiden.
Nobody who made the good ones is still working there.
I know. I would still be excited, though. So anyway, that's our housekeeping for episode 418. We are ready to get on with the show. We're going to kick things off with the muted debut of the Nintendo Switch 2. Matt, can you remember another Nintendo console that was announced with so little fanfare and hype?
I mean, in a weird way, the Wii U kind of was because nobody knew what it was.
That's the closest analog for sure. Because people were like, "What the hell is that thing?" I don't feel like there's been a lot of that. It does seem like most people are getting that it's a sequel to Switch.
Yeah,
the name helps, obviously.
It is definitely the least deviant from the previous system they've ever done. But that's fine because why would you change anything after the success of the Switch? It's been pretty stupid to watch a lot of the takes of just like, oh, it's not. It's like, who gives a shit? Like it's the most boring. Like, how come they didn't hype anything? It's like, it's because you're gonna buy it anyway. Who gives a shit? Like it's exactly what it needs to be.
Yeah.
Like they're about to outsell the fucking DS. It's the top selling console of all time. Like, why would you rearrange anything? Like, just make a more powerful Switch is exactly what it should be.
I did a bunch of analysis on this. I did a whole episode of Ask Shane Anything about the Nintendo Switch 2 reveal. And one of the things that did catch my eye, I'm going to pause it right here, is the rails. So the Joy-Con now, instead of being wholly colored, the color for the Joy-Con is the ring around the analog stick and then the colors in the rail. And then if you look on the tablet, and hopefully this trailer here as it goes forward will show this. If you go look at the tablet also has colored rails, color-coded rails. So my question is, and maybe you can provide some insight on this, Matt, is when you buy a Switch 2, are the rails on the tablet going to be red and blue forever? And then whatever controllers that you buy that are different colored after that are not going to match the rails on the console?
What? I don't know what you mean.
So see, look right there.
Like in there?
Yeah.
Maybe?
Doesn't that seem really dumb and short-sighted?
No, because who's looking at that?
I mean, I did. I brought it up, obviously.
Right, but I mean, if you got them plugged in, you're not looking on the inside of that thing. It's probably just a guide for like which one goes where when you get it out of the box.
Right, but what happens when you have a purple one?
Who gives a shit? You can't see it. You don't see it when you're looking at the system without them attached. You don't see it at all when they're attached because they're covering it. So
yeah.
What does it matter?
It just seems like it's just a dumb design oversight. Like, just it's very un-Nintendo. Like, Nintendo usually has its T's crossed and its I's dotted. And that, to me, is not that.
That seems like a really obvious thing to do if you're going to color code the things, and then by the time you get a different color, you already know where they go.
I don't understand what that means.
Like, what do you need them to be the same color for? What do you need them to be a different color? What if they were black? You mean?
That would probably be better if they were both black.
I don't. I can't. This is you must really love this thing because that is the most nitpicky thing I've ever seen anyone say about
what
this.
else is there to say about it, man?
Not much. It's just a
I
Switch.
may have found something other people haven't found. That's what we do. We analyze stuff. We look for stuff that's weird or off-putting or doesn't make sense. That's our job. We're analysts. We analyze.
I don't think I would have ever noticed that if you hadn't said
A lot
something.
of people didn't. I did. That's why I'm bringing it up. That's exactly why I'm bringing it up.
And I'm saying it's of zero consequence.
Okay. Do you think maybe they might have colored inserts that snap into the tablet rail that match the Joy-Con?
That feels like it would be difficult to do.
And janky.
In terms of pulling it out of the inside of the Switch.
Yeah, I don't think there will be.
I could maybe see it having different colors in future editions. If you have one that's like, I don't know, blue and purple or something, maybe they'll I mean, maybe there was an outcry of people who wanted to know which of their Joy-Cons came with the system and which ones didn't. I don't know. Like,
also, there's an extra USB. I keep skipping past it. There's an extra USB-C port on it on the top. So the bottom one obviously is what syncs your console with the TV. And then there's an extra one on the top that nobody can figure out right there, that nobody can figure out what it's for. What do you think it might be for?
Probably just more convenient charging.
Yeah,
I would think.
you think just like a second option?
Like I would rather, if I'm charging it while I'm playing it, which I will never be.
Yeah.
I would rather have it plugged into the top than the bottom.
That's true. Yeah, I'd agree with that. And it could be maybe to attach some peripherals maybe to it.
Theoretically.
Yeah. Because one of the things that people are talking about is how Nintendo released this disclaimer saying that some games will not work on Switch 2. Switch 1 games won't work on Switch 2. And I think the obvious answer to some of that is stuff that use the Joy-Con in a peripheral, like Ring Fit Adventure, where you snap the Joy-Con into the ring.
Yeah, and I know people were skeptical. It's like, oh, it was such a big hit. Why would it be? So they can sell you another one, is what they're doing. I mean, that's more Nintendo than anything in the world.
And then I haven't seen the IR thing in the new Joy-Con, and so I'm guessing maybe if the couple games that actually use the IR thing might not work on Switch 2.
Is that not it at the bottom there, the little
maybe
groove?
That's why I paused it there. I don't know. And then there's the one button on the right Joy-Con that's still blank in this trailer. You can see it right there, that one on the bottom right. And nobody knows what that's for. And at least there's maybe one secret left for the Switch 2 to surprise us with. And then there's the whole mouse thing that we're seeing here. Matt, would you ever use that as a mouse?
Probably not.
It feels like maybe the Joy-Con should come together to become one thing and then maybe use that as a mouse. But otherwise, it seems a little weird to use it vertically like that. But I'm sure Nintendo's tested it and it's okay with it. And maybe the people who tested it were okay with it. You wouldn't think Nintendo would release something completely stupid.
I mean, it's the last thing it doesn't do. So why not? Maybe you can get even more cheap PC ports of garbage.
Right. I mean, I think that's probably the goal there. Is try to get more PC games.
I mean, they already got all the stupid hidden object games on there, which play better with mice. So maybe that's part of it.
Yeah. I would probably not play a PC game with my Joy-Con turned to the
No,
side.
I don't need to do that because I have a PC. But...
I mean, what they should just do is make it compatible with a real PC mouse and keyboard.
Well, it wouldn't surprise me if you could maybe use that USB-C port on the top for that.
Maybe, yeah. And then
especially a wireless.
Yeah. And then obviously, the only software that we got really a look at here is the next Mario Kart. Now, eagle-eyed people, can spot when it first starts here, there's 24 starting gates at the beginning of the race. So Mario Kart 8 had 12 people. It looks like this next Mario Kart's going to have double that at 24. So obviously, an extra 12 racers on the course. That takes a lot of processing power. But still, this game does not impress me, Matt, visually. Does it you?
I mean, it looks fine.
I'm not saying it looks bad. Does it look much better than Mario Kart 8?
I've never played Mario Kart 8, so
really?
I'm not 100% sure.
Interesting.
But, I don't know. I'd have to see a little more of it than that clip.
Yeah. I mean, that's pretty much all they show.
Most of what people I've seen saying is that they're freaking out that Donkey Kong looks different.
Yeah, they gave him a new character model. Yeah.
Well, it looks more like his original, like a 3D version of the Donkey Kong arcade version, which finally moving away from that rare version, I guess.
Yeah.
And that looks a little bit more like the one in the movie, I guess.
Yeah. You can see kind of the whole track here. It does look like it's sprawling and long, but it doesn't look like there's a lot of off-track detail.
Well, it's one track.
Yeah.
And
you would think you put your best
foot forward. It's a big track because that's not how Nintendo works. They'll show you the crazier stuff when it's time.
Yeah.
You're not supposed. They don't want you to talk about Mario Kart about this. They want you to talk about the hardware.
Yep.
But like, we'll see. I mean, it doesn't. I guess it doesn't look that much better. But if it runs smoothly and it can put 24 people on the screen,
mm-hmm. That's a big difference for sure. And Impactor was talking about it. He thinks that Nintendo will push a lot harder with Nintendo Switch Online out of the box with Switch 2. Obviously, if there's 24 racers in Mario Kart 9 or whatever it ends up being called, that's a big difference, and maybe that can convince people to sign up for Nintendo Switch Online. I don't know. If there is a killer app for Nintendo Switch Online, it probably is Mario Kart.
For the general audience, I would say, yeah.
Yeah. And then maybe for the more core Splatoon 4 or whatever the hell, which is probably
Metroid Prime. Is for me.
Well, Metroid Prime has multiplayer?
I don't know, but multiplayer might. Wouldn't surprise me.
But what would you need Nintendo Switch Online for then?
Who knows?
You think that they may do something?
They might
because it's retro
something.
Instead of one of their Japan studios. Because they maybe treat it like Western developers.
You know, like slap in some form of Metroid Prime Hunters in there.
Yeah, yeah. What were your thoughts on this, Matt? You just kind of answered a bunch of stuff that I've talked about.
I didn't really have many.
Yeah.
It's a Switch Pro.
Yeah.
Basically.
It really is, yeah.
It's exactly what I thought it would be, and that's fine. Show me the games.
Yeah. What do you think of all the people who are pissed off that it is just a Super Switch and that it doesn't have, they don't believe has, that's kind of been the rhetoric over the last week is like, oh, we have boring Nintendo now, and now we're never going to get cool hardware again because Nintendo was the only one that was ever going to do it, and now Nintendo's not doing it.
I thought this was cool hardware to begin. Like, what? The Switch isn't cool anymore?
That's 7 years later, I guess. You know.
So what? It's what works.
Yeah.
Like, why? I'm not going to have that opinion, obviously, because I'm the innovation isn't as important as execution person, and it looks like they may have finally executed the idea to a power level that is acceptable in 2020. Disappointed by this. This is exactly what they needed to do and exactly what they were always going to do.
Yeah.
Like, that's all it needs to be. It's all it should be. Like, why do you want to rock like, Nintendo barely pulled themselves out of the Wii U generation after the disaster that was, and they hit on, like, the perfect formula that, made them the most successful game console of all time. Like, why would you change that?
Yeah.
Why would you go drastically afield after that? Like, that doesn't make any sense. They're a business. They're not here to tickle you. They're here to fucking get your money, and they're going to get your money because every single person who's making that complaint is going to buy this thing day one. So who cares?
Yeah. Yeah, I thought the whole thing was overblown, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, I was more disappointed, but I expect dumb takes from like the general, gaming weirdos. I was disappointed that so many actual press outlets were having, headlines like that. I know you got to get the clicks, but like, that's just pathetic.
Well, I think the problem is that it's a new piece of Nintendo hardware, and people want to be able to pontificate about it. People want to be able to create content around it that people are going to watch, but there's nothing to say. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's why, me noticing the rail thing is like one thing that I haven't seen anybody talk about. That's why I brought it up, because there's nothing to talk about with Switch 2. It's really like, it's exactly what I thought it was going to be. All the leaks were crazy accurate. I mean, that thing at CES was Switch 2.
Yeah.
We saw it. Like when we said, when we said on the show that if Genki's going to show that in public, we were 99% sure that was the Switch 2, and in fact, it was. I'm curious to see what you guys think about this. We haven't gone to you guys yet in the show. Let's see. And Morton Joe, thank you for Twitch Prime. Appreciate that. What else we got here? Mario Kart and Smash. Yeah, what do you think is going to happen with Smash?
I don't know. Next year, maybe?
Because Sakurai's not really working on it again, right?
No, he said he's done. I mean, I think they should just keep updating it as a platform thing. It just carry, obviously the existing one's going to work on the new system. I think an argument can be made you don't need to do another Smash Brothers ever.
It doesn't feel like it to me, honestly. Raphael Michael says, here's my take. You may use it as a mouse for some games, but the way they'll promote this feature is for some friction gimmick for some of their first-party games. I mean, that's the way Nintendo's hardware is. Like,
yeah, they do.
Nintendo uses it, and nobody else
use it for
does.
a gimmick in like 1 or 2 games around launch window, and then you never hear about it again.
Yeah. Vincent says Switch 1 is already compatible with mice. Then why isn't Switch 2 compatible with mice? Why are they making theirs goofy? Like, I guess they don't want people to spend an extra $10
you don't need extra
on
hardware, I guess.
Mice Q says, I think it's been confirmed that both Joy-Con now have IR instead of just one from Switch. Interesting. I didn't see that at all this week. I'd be interested to hear where you found that, Mike's Q, that information. Vincent says, thoughts on the rumors that the mysterious C button is linked to a social hub. God, I hope not.
Like a Me Plaza kind of thing?
I hope not.
I could see that.
Ian Esquire brings up Labo. That was another thing that used the Joy-Con that probably won't work with Switch 2 now. So that's another thing where they kind of snapped into a peripheral. Ethan says the color coding is clearly telling... Yeah, obviously, it is telling you where each joystick goes. So what happens when you have a purple one and there's an orange rail? That's what I'm talking about. Come on, people. Keep up.
I mean, you just plug it in.
Yeah, I'm just saying, like... But that's... Anyway, forget it. Zet Saver, focus more on the game on the screen and not the rails. What game on the screen? What, Mario Kart 9? The only one that they showed for like 5 seconds? Mice Q, thank you for Twitch Prime. Eve Demon, my hot take, a power upgrade is exactly what I want. Honestly, I think a lot of people want that. Some people are tired of Nintendo trying to do goofy stuff with their hardware. Some people. But if you were online this week, it felt like the vast majority of people are not on that team. Like, they want Nintendo to try new things and do crazy stuff. Again, I hear you. You don't want it. There's a lot of people that don't, but there's a lot of people that do as well.
I don't think there's that many that do. I think they're just loud.
Yeah.
If people are fine with this, what are you going to say?
Mm-hmm.
Just like, I was fine with it?
And like, make a big deal about it?
I haven't said a single thing about the Switch 2 online all week.
Oh, really?
Because what am I going to say? It's like, yeah, that's what I thought.
Yeah.
Cool. I hope it's not $500.
El Hugo, thank you for Twitch Prime. That's awesome. Finally catching the podcast live. Welcome. That's great. It's been a while. Are you guys going to stream on YouTube as well? Yep, starting next week, we will be on YouTube. I know I promised that for this week. I got in over my head getting both of these shows together for one day. I just couldn't get it set up in time. But next week, absolutely. And we also have kind of figured out how to handle the archiving there. That was another thing that I worked on this week. So yes, next week it will stream live on YouTube. Eve Demon says they never said dormant, just a well-known Japanese IP. That's not what I read. Talc in 1981, thank you for Twitch Prime. Anything else here? Get Up Kid 1284, thank you. Raphael Michael, thank you. Hope you're doing good. Ian Esquire, thank you. Talimper, Mr. 60, thank you all for Twitch Prime. We appreciate it very, very much. But honestly, like, there's not a lot of chatter here about Nintendo's new hardware, honestly.
Oh, what are you going to say?
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't feel like there is much to say. Erebus says it's dull as F, but as long as it's not too expensive, I'm almost certainly going to buy it. Everyone's going to buy it. And what do you think about the price, Matt? Do you have any guesses on what the price is going to be?
I think it's going to be $450, unless the tariffs.
You think it'll be $450?
Yeah, unless the tariffs drive it up.
Yeah. I mean, if the tariffs could make it like $700, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, 25% is not nothing.
Well, I think it's that 25%. I think is just for Canada and Mexico.
That's for Canada and Mexico,
I think Asia, it's like 100%.
Well, he hasn't said anything about that yet, for sure.
Yeah.
But well, I mean, it's already going to affect game prices because most games are manufactured in Mexico. So a 25% tariff on that is going to jack physical game prices up, which will be very interesting to see if digital game prices follow suit on that. Because do you think that
they're going to sell physical for more than digital?
Right.
No.
Like does brick and mortar still have the clout to make digital prices stay in parity?
Probably not. It doesn't actually.
I don't think it does.
But they have to sell the hardware through retail, and that is where they do have some leverage, and they might be able to work a deal with that. Because if they're like, well, you need us to sell your hardware, so if you can't make a deal with us on this physical software, then maybe we don't sell your hardware because we don't make any money off your hardware.
But also, you could then counter argue with like, well, our hardware gets people in your store, which is a hard thing to do now. So who needs who more? You know, we can just sell it all online if we have to.
Major Tom, I've got no issue with how the Switch 2 has been unveiled. From a technical level, it just needs to be Switch 2 Pro for me, and that's what it is. Mike's Q, he follows up, sorry, my mistake. The IR sensors in question are the inside sensors for the mice functionality. That's what I thought. Yeah, I hadn't read anything about that. I was like, wait a minute, how did I miss that? Erebus Jones, if it's $450, it can go whistle. I don't play Switch 1 enough to pay that. That's nonsense. I think it'll be $400. Two Medic says he thinks it'll be $500. He's hoping for $399. I think it'll be $400. I think it'll be $100 more than the last Switch. If the tariffs are involved, all bets are off. Like if there are tariffs, like it could be like double the price. Mm-hmm. It could just be an extra $100. It could be double the price. Who knows? The whole thing is absolutely insane, insane. I don't know. Anybody voted for this? Anybody vote for this?
Yeah.
To jack up the price of our electronics?
Well, they don't understand how tariffs work. So
this is insane. It is insane what is happening in our country right now. It's bonkers. Congram one says it better be $399. $449 is a tough sell for me. The extra $50 is a deal breaker, huh? Interesting. It is a game. As a game that you could get with the system.
Yeah,
so.
Most of a game.
Yeah, you're right. True. Well, Nintendo, most of the game. Well, yeah, even that won't get.
It is funny still for me. Like this week, you had people screaming about $100 for a game that I've never played. So I'm like, games are still cheaper than they were in the 16-bit era. Mm-hmm. And everyone's like, oh man, I was $89.99 for Chrono Trigger, and people are like, you're lying. Here's a picture of an advertisement. It was all PlayStation 1 games, mm-hmm. And it's like, yeah, a lot of them are $49 and $59, and I'm like, now calculate what $59 in 1996 is now. They are more than $100. Like in 2025.
Yeah, we've been let's be honest, we've been lucky. Like
games are insanely low price, especially considering what budgets have done over. That was a matter of scale. So I don't know. Like the idea that Rockstar would just price GTA 6 at $100 and say go fuck yourselves, buy it or don't, is if anyone would have the balls to do that, it would be Rockstar. But also that feels like a way to make sure you don't sell as many copies as you want to get your revenue up for the quarter for the
mm-hmm.
Like, I don't know if they really want to shoot themselves in the foot on that. Like, $70 for the game plus, like, some ridiculous, like, $140, like, collector's edition seems more in line.
That's usually how they do things.
Yeah.
I'm guessing you saw where the analyst was basically saying, like, secretly, game developers and publishers are hoping that Rockstar charges $80 or $100 for Grand Theft Auto 6 because then that opens the floodgates for everybody else to do it.
Right.
By the way, that was one of the most popular stories on Sifted last week was that story about that analyst saying, like, secretly the industry's rooting for Rockstar to jack up the price of GTA 6. Because you're right. Like, we have been getting a really good deal for a really long time. Like, there's no denying that. Like, game prices have not risen with the price of inflation. I talk about skateboard decks all the time, too. Same deal. They have been $50 since 1984 and have never gone up because every time they try to go up, people rebel and don't buy them. And so they go right back to where they were. So there's just certain things that we've just come to expect to be a certain price. And when that changes, people freak out.
Yeah, and I give you, especially if you go away from a hobby long enough, you come back and comic books are $7.99 now. I'm just like, what the?
Yeah.
By the way, most comic books printed in Canada.
Yeah.
So $10 for an issue of X-Men coming up.
Yeah. Another thing I brought up in Ask Shane Anything about the Switch 2 reveal is, do you feel like Nintendo should have just unveiled the thing at the Game Awards? Because the leaks were already coming out then, and they were the only ones that knew the leaks were accurate. Like, we didn't know. We're guessing. We're like, oh, okay, that could be true. That could be. Nintendo knew that what was leaking out was 100% accurate. And it could have made the decision at that point, well, this is just going to get worse. We should just unveil this thing in front of... Jeff says there was like 150 million people or something watching the Game Awards.
That's not true.
It's
like 4 million people.
How would he get away with saying that?
Because it's just number of streams.
Because
it's basically number of web page hits. It's not every single hit on it is an individual person. No, it's not unique. It's just... Because, look, man... Like one of the biggest selling games you can possibly have sold 20 million copies over the course of 2 years, and you're expecting me to believe that 140 million people watched a fucking video game awards show commercial? Give me a fucking break.
I have troubles with it too, honestly.
It's nonsense.
But I went and I looked, and like if you look at the people, he's not making that number up.
No, he's not.
It's being given to him by people who measure that stuff.
Sure, but like they're counting in some weird way because 140 million people half
insane.
The population of America did not watch the Game Awards.
I know.
I don't believe that. I'm sorry.
I don't believe it either, man. I really don't. And again, I don't think it's Jeff. Jeff's just taking the numbers that this independent company
I
gives
think
him.
4 to 5 million people watch those things.
That's what I think too. Because our best years of the Video Game Awards on Spike, if we hit 1.5 million people, we were dancing in the streets, man. Dancing. And that took like 300 or 400 people working their ass off for like 3 months to get 1.5 million people to watch. Now, gaming has grown. Obviously, there's more people doing it. It should be higher.
And it's easier to get to.
No,
that doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
That's nonsense.
I don't believe it either.
It's nonsense.
But still, like, even if it was 4 million people, as of right now, or as of last night, the Nintendo Switch 2 debut trailer had done like 18 or 19 million views, and it is tracking slightly ahead.
Yeah, that's the other thing.
It's
like even it's tracking ahead of PS5 and PS4 combined.
Oh, really? I didn't realize that.
Yeah, but again, if 140 million people watch the Game Awards, 140 million people would watch the fucking Switch 2 reveal.
Yeah,
it's just a teaser trailer. Like if that many people got off their asses to tune into that thing for 3 hours, I assure you they would watch a 2-minute trailer for the next Nintendo system.
It's great,
like
for
it's
Jeff,
nonsense
because he gets to set his advertising rates based upon the audience.
Like
so
fucking,
he's like, yes.
If the advertisers are dumb enough to believe it, go for it. I mean, that's honestly old school ad sales.
It
like
is
that's,
a little bit.
That's like back when they used to charge like $4 million for a season-long slot in advertising on the Tonight Show because this many people watched the Tonight Show, which was actually probably pretty accurate when there were only 3 channels. But like, yeah, I'd go for it. Like if whoever, whatever advertisers on those things are dumb enough to pay the prices because they believe that number, go for it. Like, I don't care.
Do you still think that?
But I don't believe it.
Yeah, I agree. Do you still think it might have been smarter though for Nintendo to just show it at the Game Awards?
No, because like, how disappointed would everyone have been with this in the wake of all the other stuff they showed at that show?
So you're saying the leaks actually softened the blow for Nintendo to debut something that people would otherwise have been not happy with?
I think that given the reaction online, probably. I don't think it would have mattered in the long run for like the Switch 2 success or anything.
Yeah.
But like, in terms of like how excited everybody was about all the reveals that night, and then the reveal for the Switch 2 would have been just this with no games and no anything. Like, I don't think that would have flown very well. I mean, it didn't fly very well anyway. I guess it doesn't matter. But at least this way, everybody's just focused on that and not like ignoring it because they're more interested in whatever else they showed at the Game Awards. I think it would have gotten lost in some of the noise to some degree.
What do you think is going to happen with this, the Switch Lite?
I don't know.
You think they'll just make another one for Switch 2? It'll be a Switch 2 Lite?
Eventually, probably.
Do you feel like that's something that maybe should be there pretty quickly after launch?
No, because you want people to buy this one.
Yeah.
Because theoretically, this will be cheaper, and you don't want to take away from that.
Yeah, because it doesn't dock; it's just a handheld. But it feels like the consumer expects for this option to be there now. I guess is what I was getting at.
I don't think they do.
Yeah.
No.
Because my sisters and brothers, like, they bought like a Switch for their house that they dock. But then they started buying the lights for the kids, their own, with their own colors, and like, you beat that up, that's on you, and if it breaks, then you don't get another one type deal. And I just feel like maybe a lot of parents expect maybe this cheaper option to be there after 7 years of Switch, but
I don't think a lot of people are in here buying 4 of these things day one.
Yeah. Good luck trying to find 4.
Even if it was available. So I think you do what you did with the normal Switch. You just put out the new one. People buy it. Everybody gets just that much fed up having to share it with everybody, and then you put the Switch 2 Lite out, and it's like, oh, finally we can get the kids their own. And so I think you do the same thing.
Yeah. Do you think they're gonna repeat everything, including like the OLED? You think they're gonna put out?
I can't believe they wouldn't. I mean, it seems pretty obvious to not put. I mean, partly you're not putting the OLED in this thing because it's going to drive the price up. So maybe if you really are trying to hit that $400 mark, that's what keeps it from being $450.
Yeah.
But also, there's going to be enough demand from the enthusiasts that you're probably going to be able to sell an OLED in 2 years.
Yeah.
So sure, I believe that.
Yep. Anything else that caught your eye about Switch 2 that you want to discuss?
Not really.
Yeah. Let's take a look
it.
at chat and make sure we answer all questions before we move on. Toon Medic, do you think the price of PC handhelds will lead to Nintendo jacking up the price of Switch 2?
I don't think Nintendo really pays attention to that stuff.
Yeah, I don't no.
I think they will price it based on what it costs to manufacture, and that's it.
And them to make a little profit on it.
Yeah, they always make sure they make a little profit on the hardware. So
Nintendo never sells hardware at a loss.
No.
It just doesn't. It's not what it does.
Nintendo's never gone in for the Razer model.
So whatever it costs, and then tack on like $50 is probably where you're going to end up. Like, maybe that's how it ends up being $450 instead of $400. I don't know. Vincent said, "Oh, you guys are talking amongst yourselves. Something about China because China is a giant Did you read Jason's article? Most of the game budget's ballooning is mismanagement. Yeah, I mean, we're not surprised by that. Unfortunately, that's the way it is going. It's not the workers, but if you watch the newest episode of Pactor Factor that we just published, Pactor brings up a good point. He's like, they asked him about all the service games canceled at PlayStation, and he's like, yeah, he talks about it, and he goes in, he's like, what happens when this happens? It's like, because the person asked, like, will somebody get fired over this? And Packer's like, oh, the executives who made the decisions aren't going to get fired. Instead, you dissolve the studio that did nothing wrong. It just did what they were told by the management. The management will keep their jobs, and all the workers will lose their jobs. And that's true. That is what happens. It's not the people who made the terrible decision that lose their jobs. I mean, that happened at Game Trailers when they made us do like this goofy mobile site, and they tried to make us do a blog with one employee. And then when it didn't work, they're like, whoop, sorry. Everyone's going to lose their job now. Yeah.
To be fair, at G4, everybody did, in fact, lose their job, including the executives, when they made so many horrible decisions. So, for once...
Yeah.
But we used to say, like, G4 is pretty much out, the bottom of the ladder as when you were bouncing down the rungs of show business, so...
Oh, they're talking about how they think that China was where the audience came from for the Game Awards, 150 million people or whatever.
I still don't believe that.
I don't either. Nope. I don't care how much they rallied around Black Myth Wukong. Vincent says Switch Lite might get a price cut. That's true. But then it still only works with the old Switch software. That's kind of the rub there. Fruit Eater, thank you for Twitch Prime. We got a bunch of questions here. Khalib Twilai, you check out the Matt Ball presentation. I don't know what that is. Do you?
No.
I have no idea what that is. Mighty Pony Girl, there should be a Logan's Run policy for studio heads. Stolty69, thank you for Twitch Prime, brother. Appreciate it. You've been a supporter for a long time, man. I remember you. So thank you. So anyway, it looks like you guys are exhausted of all your Switch 2 questions and comments. If you have any more, get them in there real quick right now before we move on, because we're about to move on again. I talked about this for 25 minutes on Ask Shane Anything again. If you're watching this show on YouTube, you should be watching Ask Shane Anything. I know you look at it and you're like, oh, it's just some goofy Q&A show. There's a lot more to it than just that. Give it a chance. Khalid Twilight says, is the State of Gaming 2025 really comprehensive analysis of the industry? I did not see it.
No.
There's so many of those. Like, it's really crazy. Like, the industry has gone from where there was, like, Pactor and Pactor's rival to now there's, like, 20 dudes. I've never heard of it before. Like, and it's like, I don't know who to trust. It's like, I know I can trust Pactor because he works at Wedbush, where they just have crazy access to any resource that they could want. These other guys, I don't know where they're coming from, what they're doing, so a lot of times I just don't spend the time following what they say. Dreylox, what do you think the launch lineup can be? I think we've talked about this before. Obviously Mario Kart 9, obviously Metroid Prime 4, and then we've waffled between the next 3D Mario being there at launch or being like a holiday game.
No, I don't think it'll be there at launch.
I'm tending to agree with you.
I don't think you put that out with alongside Mario Kart.
Yeah, that's overkill. I agree with you. I think it'll probably be holidays. That'd be my guess anyway. Other than that, though, like I don't think anybody knows.
No, I mean I'm sure there'll be like third-party things that couldn't work on the Switch 1. Like maybe you'll get Assassin's Creed Shadows or something. Just stuff you already have on other platforms. Yeah. Pretty much. Couple of weird little like stupid human trick games that like show off the features of the Joy-Cons and things and are never going to be referenced again, like snipper clips. And
Switch 2 is going to be a PS4 port machine.
Yeah.
Because Switch has not been able to run unless you did it on the cloud, and we all know how that works. Unless you did it on the cloud, Switch has missed an entire generation, and now a generation and a half of third-party games. So all those awesome games from the PS4 era are just going to flood Switch 2. Because the other thing, too, is that like a lot of Switch owners only own a Switch. They are Nintendo fans. They only have a Nintendo console. They have not played those games. A lot of us have, because most of the people on SIFTD were all multi-platform people who have a PC and maybe a console or two. A lot of Nintendo fans are not that way. They have not played these games. So I think what you're going to see is what we see at the beginning of every Nintendo generation. There's going to be a lot of games. There may be maybe launches with like 20 of them, but my guess is like 15 or 16 of them are going to be old games that most of us don't give a crap about. That would be my guess.
Yeah, that would fit.
Because if you think back to even like the Wii U, there was like Batman and like all these third-party games that had never been on a Nintendo platform, and they didn't sell because they're old. Even Nintendo fans are like, eh. Like,
Jedi Survivor, that's probably correct.
Stuff like that.
Elden Ring.
Yep. I think you'll see stuff like that. I think that'll be... And if Nintendo is smart and work with their third parties, that it should be there. That stuff should be there. Thank you for the bits, Ian Esquire. That's awesome, man. Thank you. That's great. Eth Demon says, I have a PC and a Switch. Yeah, most of us do. Almost all of us, we're all multi-platform people. I think that's why we all love each other on Sifted. We're all very the same. Not a lot of fanboys on Sifted. So if you're looking for a place to go where people are adults and act like adults, come check us out at sifted.net. Thank you, Ian, again for these bits. That's awesome, man. Yeah, you're going crazy, dude. Thank you. Are you okay? But by all means, keep dropping them. We'll take them. Any last questions before we move on from the Switch 2 debut? And then we've got to wait until April 2nd for the big blowout. And then we'll probably get launch line up there. We'll get price. Release date would be my guess. Release date. When do you think it's going to come out, Matt?
I don't know. We're doing it in April. It's probably going to be August, September.
Yeah? You think a little bit later?
Yeah.
I predicted June. And then today, some analyst said anywhere from April to September. And I'm like, I think I could come up with that. That's a pretty wide window there, bro. So anyway.
April to June, 2 months is pretty short.
It is.
For to put pre-orders up then.
Pachter, again, in his latest episode, or episode before this one that we put up last Friday, he thinks that they're in production now. He said that they waited probably until they announced it officially, and then the next day it went into production. So that would give you 4 or 5 months of production to get units ready for launch in June. Mm-hmm. You could probably make it happen. Yeah. You may not have 20 million then, but you could probably still get out 20 million before the end of the year. He also brought up something that I never think about is like when you first start creating stuff, there's a lot of like bad like rejects. Yeah. And so it takes a good like month and a half for them to get the lines working to where there aren't fit and finish issues with the hardware. So anyway, watch Pachter Factor, get that information that you aren't going to get anywhere else. And thanks again, Ian Esquire, for all those bits. On-screen celebration. That's amazing. And Pachter's face there as well. Sound Wizard, what's up, brother? How you doing, man? I see you just joined in there. What's going on? Okay. Vincent says Switch 1 was 2 months. So is he saying from announcement to launch?
I guess.
Yeah.
January to March.
Yeah, that's about right. Yeah, because they announced it in January, like before GDC. And who knows what's going to happen at GDC? There might be some little leaks coming out of there as well. That's coming up here in a couple weeks, so keep your eyes open. And as always, all that stuff will be on Sifted. All right, there you go. That's the Nintendo Switch 2, the official reveal. Although on the last episode, we pretty much showed it to you guys. So if you're a watcher of GameFace, you got to look at the Switch 2 a week or two before a lot of other people around the globe. All right, next up, we're going to talk about PlayStation canceling more games as a service games. So Matt, by my count, you sent me a text message that laid out all the service games that we know of that had been announced, and then whether they had been canceled, released, or are still in development. And the list that you sent me, 8 of the 12, and now 9. Now 9 of the 12 known games as a service games that PlayStation was working on have been canceled. 9 out of 12.
Yeah. And you got Helldivers came out.
Yeah.
Marathon, presumably still being made.
Presumably still coming.
Concord did come out.
Right.
And that's it. That's 12.
And we're counting on Fair Games still, I
Fair
think.
Games, that doesn't seem to be, but apparently word is that Sony management is real spooked by the Concord thing.
Yeah. You lose $500 million on a game.
Right, you should. Yeah, you should be.
You better be spooked.
I mean, it's a shame that it took that to teach them But I think it's interesting because it's like, okay, they've canceled a bunch of these. Who knows what happens to Marathon? And they said they're not closing Bend or Blue Point, or they're basically pivoting to a new project.
So we should tell them on the news, which is that a God of War live service game,
which is one of the worst ideas I can possibly think of.
The worst allocation of resources
like, what in the world is that?
Blue Point was put on that game. That was canceled. There was just this morning a Horizon Online game that was being developed by NCSoft that was canceled.
Although that doesn't seem to have been Sony's call. Something else happened with that.
Oh, really?
I didn't see the whole thing on that because I wasn't didn't have time to look at it. But that sounded like it was NCSoft or something did something with that. I don't think that was part of this same I don't think that was part of Sony's fear of live service games. It seems like something else went wrong there.
Okay.
I'm not sure what.
And then Sony Bend, which made Days Gone, was working on something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, something totally unannounced.
Yeah, that we didn't even know about that, honestly, that they were even working on this. We wondered what Ben was working on.
Yeah, one assumed that they were doing something.
And apparently it was a live service game, and they canceled that. I think Days Gone would work great as a live service game, honestly. Like, it's kind of, that property is just kind of sitting there.
I mean, if you have to do it.
It just feels like PlayStation has no clue what it's doing.
Well, now I think maybe it does. It's like not live service.
It's just canceling everything. Canceling all of
it. Apparently they're pivoting. They're not laying people off. They're pivoting to new projects.
Other projects.
And stuff.
But we don't know what they are.
Well, presumably not live service games.
Right.
And but the thing I think to note is that if these teams are pivoting to a new project, we're not going to see that project until the PS6. Like we're kind of looking at it like the PS5 might be kind of a lost generation.
It feels like
to some degree.
It really feels like it
because of this live service thrust that then just completely fizzled. Like you're. Like these guys aren't going to have enough time to make a game for the PS. I mean, probably be on PS5 and PS6,
right.
But like it feels like you're looking at something 3 to 4 years out for most of these things.
The crazy thing is, like, it feels like PlayStation didn't learn anything from Helldivers 2. It's like nobody thought Helldivers 2 was going to be a huge hit. Like everyone's going to give it a chance. Nobody thought it was going to be a huge live service game hit. They don't like Days Gone. They don't want to do a sequel to Days Gone. But they can't see that IP is sitting there, and it actually would be a good match with the service game.
Well, maybe that's what Bend was making. We don't know.
Yeah, I mean, if you read the rhetoric from Sony Bend over the last 18 months, you would not think that they were working on Days Gone still. But you're right. It could have been just subterfuge or whatever. But the bottom line is, Days Gone is ripe for a live service game. Not God of War. Who in their right mind would ever think that God of War would be a service game?
Days Gone fits the model better, I think, in terms of the setting and what you do in it, but God of War is more popular. So the executives are going to say make it out of that. They don't know. The people calling the shots don't understand what that means.
They don't know what they're doing. What they do is they make great single-player games. Can you think of any good PlayStation multiplayer games, Matt?
SOCOM, I guess.
Kinda.
I mean, people like that a lot.
I mean, that's literally it.
And but that was a long time ago.
Racing,
yeah.
Seriously, I can't think of any. Killzone's multiplayer for PS3 was okay for a couple weeks, and I got tired of that.
I mean, some people like the
Resistance multiplayer was forgettable.
Some people like Last of Us multiplayer a lot.
Right. Yeah, some people did like that. But it was, again, an acquired taste.
I wasn't into it.
Yeah, Naughty Dog, like Uncharted's multiplayer, again, an acquired taste. Some people liked it, most people didn't.
I guess there was online play, at least one of those Twisted Metals, right?
Yeah. Maybe. Yeah, the very last one.
Yeah.
The one that was awful.
Yeah.
Where they tried to revive it. And that's another one. That was canceled, by the way. They were working on another Twisted Metal game, a live service game, and that was also canceled.
Yeah. Man, how annoying would that have been? Just like grinding for costume, like skins for vehicles you don't even care about.
Bajor Tom says Starhawk. Another one that
Starhawk,
some people liked.
Warhawk and Starhawk, yeah.
But most people didn't. They're just not good at it. And so you need to realize either you partner with somebody who is good at it, which I guess is why they bought Bungie. Maybe that was one of their big ideas with buying Bungie, is like, we suck at multiplayer, Bungie gets multiplayer, but you need more. It's so instead of throwing mud against a wall, hoping that something sticks, how about you just do what you're great at, which is making awesome single player games?
Yeah, it's the full commit that was the problem.
Yeah.
It's like make a few.
You can't have
make a few live service games, sure, but you have to keep the pipeline going and what makes your bread and butter.
Yeah,
it's very weird to waste Blue Point's time on something like that.
Any of these studios' time. I mean, right now, Guerrilla is the last one making a Horizon multiplayer game. Do I want Guerrilla working on a multiplayer Horizon? No, I do not. I want them making a sequel to Horizon Forbidden West. Seriously.
Yeah.
I don't understand it. These are supposed to be people that are way smarter than us, Matt, and they're not. They don't get it.
I don't know who said they're supposed to be smarter than us.
Because they're making way more money than us. That's the way things are supposed to work.
That's the way they want you to think it works. It's never how it actually works.
Touche. But still, like, these people are supposed to be the cream of the crop from our industry. Like, PlayStation First Party should be able to hire the best people in the industry. Period.
But that's not how anything in the executive world works.
No.
You know that.
You just fail up. You just keep failing
look how many people keep hiring Phil Harrison for shit.
Right. No. And he's never had a success at anything. He completely...
Like, if you needed
he wasted like $5 billion.
If you need a tax write-off, I guess.
Yeah, he's your man. Nightwing 3060, the Horizon multiplayer, there was 2 games being made. There was one being made at NCSoft, which is
there was an MMO.
Yeah, it was an
NCSoft
MMO.
was an MMO.
And then there's one being made at Guerrilla right now that's a separate multiplayer-ish game. They haven't really shared any details about that. So I understand why there's confusion, because there was 2 Horizon multiplayer games.
Much like there were 2 film and TV Horizon projects at once.
Right,
at one
and now
point.
there's 1.
Now there's just the film.
Right.
If that even happens.
Yeah. And maybe there is a little bit of them throwing stuff against the wall with the Horizon franchise to see what works and what doesn't there. That makes a little bit more sense, but some of these other decisions, like, whoever would ever ask for a God of War multiplayer game? How does that even work?
What would you even play?
Just hack and slash each other until you're dead?
It could be like a Destiny thing where you're kind of more co-op against PvE. But I don't even who would you play?
I don't know.
Like, you pick a bunch of different you make a god or something.
I don't know. Look, we had a little taste of the Horizon franchise setting off for new frontiers with Lego Horizon Adventures, which was well made, but short. I enjoyed it for as long as it lasted, but it didn't convince me that Horizon is a property that is ripe for a bunch of other stuff.
Mm-hmm. I don't know, what... I don't have any real interest in playing as someone other than Aloy in this game. Because she's the interesting one.
And everybody else
she has the stick that can take over the machines, and she's the one that can do all that. So, what would that be? Just like the Last of Us multiplayer, just a bunch of yahoos?
Yeah.
And, a couple of named characters that from the main story, and you're all just running around killing each other? I don't see the point of that.
Congrim brings up a good point. Not everything has to go on forever. You're right. You can create a multiplayer mode that bolts onto your game, and it's okay if people only play it for a couple months. It can actually increase sales of your single player game.
Right, but
it doesn't have to go for 5 years.
But that's not what multiplayer is to these people anymore. It's the executives see multiplayer as an eternal revenue stream.
Yeah.
And the only revenue stream worth having in some cases. It's similar back in the aughts when every game had to have a multiplayer mode in it.
Otherwise, people wouldn't buy it.
Otherwise, you wouldn't buy it, or people would buy it and return it. They just rent it and beat it or whatever. Right. And they wanted them to keep the game longer, and so you put multiplayer in everything, whether it was good or not.
Yeah.
There's always that kind of some kind of element that the executives are pushing on these things that doesn't actually jive with how anybody actually plays video games.
Yeah. We just watched 12 minutes of B-roll of 3 properties that they were trying to make games as a service games from. And honestly, Matt, the one that looks the most viable is Days Gone.
Obviously, making a zombie multiplayer thing is a proven thing.
Everybody gets their own motorcycle that you can build and
but
put
also
parts on.
You could just call it something else because no one gives a shit about Days Gone.
Just wrap it in something else. Don't call it Days Gone. You have the bones there of the game to do it. Just call it something else, but use the same engine that you've already built. You could totally do it.
Yeah.
I don't know what's going on over there.
Everybody's in a biker gang, and you just call it Hogs of Horror or something, and get away from it.
And you hinted at something a little bit ago that I think is the big crux of this discussion, is what is the fallout from this? If you had 12, or let's say 6 internal studios and 6 external partners for a total of 12 games working on these games that amounted to nothing, what's the trickle down of that in 2026 and 2027 and 2028? Where are the games?
Yeah. Who else is... you've got Sucker Punch, who's theoretically putting Ghosts of Yotei out this year or next year.
Right.
You've got Naughty Dog, which has Intergalactic coming, which who knows?
Who knows
next year?
Maybe,
year after? I don't know. And...
Exactly.
Maybe Blue Point's got a remake team on something in there somewhere. Maybe you've got,
Insomniac's working on...
What's his name?
Another Spider-Man?
The Returnal people?
Right.
Whatever those... I forgot the name.
Not Bloober Team. It's...
No, it's that place we liked that did the...
Don't Nod. It is... Housemark.
Housemark. Yeah, Housemark's probably got something cooking.
Housemark should have a game done.
Or something soon, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it should be done. I mean, it launched its game at the launch of the PS5.
Yeah. And they had to do a PC version of it. But right. So you've got a few things in there, but nothing that's going to really carry the banner for the rest of the PS5's life.
And in fact, we're going to talk about just next year. We're going to preview the PlayStation 5 for 2025. And it's interesting, to say the least. That's putting this segment together. Some of it was eye-opening, and some of it was very, very disappointing and discouraging. But I think that's the bigger issue here, Matt, is that what happens at the launch of the PlayStation 6? Are we just writing off the rest of the PS5 generation now?
Somewhat, I think.
It feels like it.
I mean, I'm sure they're going to try, but it just feels like they're going to ride third parties for the rest of it. I mean, and it'll work. I mean, that's the thing, is most people don't make a distinction.
We'll see.
So
here's
where else are they going to go?
So far, PlayStation 5 has been very fortunate, and PlayStation fans will point this out to you if they get a chance to talk to you, is that, they feel that PlayStation doesn't get credit for the third-party exclusives.
I wasn't talking about third-party exclusives. I'm just talking about third-party games.
Oh, period.
Yeah, because where else are you gonna play them? Nobody has an Xbox,
right.
And they don't run on the Switch.
Yeah, you're right.
So what are you gonna do?
Yeah, they do have that market kind of cornered. You're right. Yeah, that's true. But anyway, it's you'll see when we preview PlayStation 5 for the rest of 2025 that all those big third-party exclusives that have been floating the boat, like Final Fantasy VII, Final Fantasy 16. All that stuff is starting to dry up. And while there are some third-party exclusives coming, they're not games that are big ones. That,
one of them is.
Well, yeah. But
one of them is the biggest.
Right. Wait. The biggest?
GTA 6.
Yeah, it's not an exclusive, though.
Yeah, it is.
No. It's coming out for Xbox.
It's not on PC.
No, not yet. But it will be. It'll come out.
But again, who gives a shit whether it's on Xbox?
Yeah.
It might as well be. If it's also on Xbox, it might as well be an exclusive.
You're right. That's true, actually. So anyway, things are looking a little rough for the latter half of the PlayStation 5's life cycle right now. In the immediate future, we're going to get to in a minute here, isn't looking all that rosy either. But to Matt's point, third-party games, most people are going to play them on PlayStation 5, and there's enough of those coming out now that you're going to be satisfied mostly. Yeah, you're going to have enough games to play.
I mean, people don't even know that Call of Duty is Microsoft now. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's true.
So
because how would they know? Because it's still coming to their platform.
Yeah, the vast majority,
which is weird.
The vast majority of people who play Call of Duty and Madden and FIFA, I don't know, it's not FIFA anymore, Football Club, all those games. The vast majority of those people are going to play them on PlayStation.
Yeah,
and it doesn't matter.
Yeah, it's true. So they might as well just be exclusives.
Yeah,
they really might as well all be exclusives, like every third-party game.
Pretty much.
I mean, seriously.
I mean, as long as they're there, why would you care?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Congram says GTA 6 is still a trump card for them. Major Tom 91 says, I'm disappointed in just how much of a wash PlayStation's output has been this generation. Me too. I've been banging this drum for 3 years. And the first year, people are like, Shane's crazy. What's he talking about? Year 2, they're like, maybe Shane has a point. Year 3, I'm right. This has been a terrible console for first-party output from PlayStation. Probably the worst ever for a PlayStation console.
For PlayStation, yeah.
Yeah. It's crazy. It should be the opposite.
I don't think that really felt true until last year when they really ran out of the pipeline.
And now here we are in this year where the pipeline still feels
like no one knew early on in February that Helldivers 2 is about as good as it's going to get other than a 3D mascot platformer.
Yeah.
Who would have believed that shit?
Saw that coming. Yeah, absolutely.
And that's what makes it more frustrating, is because even though the first party output is slowed to a trickle, the stuff that does come out is great. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So why did you waste 12 different development teams' time making this live and when we could have had 3 more games like as good as Astrobot, but again, they don't care. They don't want a sudden revenue surge from just sales of the game. They want eternal microtransactions.
Well, don't forget.
And if you look at the pie chart they put out where it breaks down Sony, PlayStation's revenue, It's something like 54% microtransactions and DLC.
Yep.
Like, that is where their money is, not sales of games.
Don't forget, Astrobot only sold 1.5 million units. I mean, it didn't put a lot of money in the coffers, although that game probably took 2.5, 3 years to make or something. So it wasn't like a Naughty Dog game where it takes 7 or 8 years.
And it already shut down Japan studio, so they don't even have anyone left to fire.
Yep, it's not looking good. Majora Tom says, not to say they haven't released great games, but yeah, I didn't think they'd abandon single-player games this much. It is crazy, because it's so good at it. Erebus Jones says, why should we give Sony credit for third-party exclusives? Final Fantasy 16 would have been on PS5 regardless. Third-party exclusives don't make gaming better for PlayStation. They make it worse for other gamers. Only corporate shills and fanboys celebrate third-party exclusives. Okay.
I mean, it doesn't really seem to move the needle anymore.
Yeah. I mean, it didn't help Square Enix.
Maybe that's just because it's Final Fantasy.
I mean, Square Enix is like, we're not doing it anymore.
Yeah.
And it gave PlayStation some of its biggest third-party exclusives.
I mean, it tried twice with some pretty big releases, and it didn't work.
It's big as it gets for them.
Yeah.
Those are its biggest games, without a doubt. Maybe Kingdom Hearts, but...
Yeah. I mean, part of the reason the third-party exclusive thing doesn't matter anymore is because Sony's already won. Mm-hmm. Like... Who gives a shit if it's on Xbox? No one's going to buy an Xbox.
Like 18 million Xboxes.
Like, what's the scenario there? Like, oh, I have this game's coming out on both of these platforms. I own the Sony one. Maybe I'll buy an Xbox just to arbitrarily play this game that I could already play on my existing system. Like, there's no scenario there.
It takes Game Pass to do it.
Yeah, but it doesn't seem to be working.
It doesn't seem to be doing it. Yep, I agree. Yep. So anyway... That is the latest on PlayStation first-party studio development, which is to say there's not a whole lot going on right now. I mean, one thing we did forget to bring up is Insomniac has got to be working on something. And
yeah, they're working on Wolverine.
It only takes 2 or 3 years usually for them to finish games. They're not like Naughty Dog in that regard, so it should probably have something coming soon, along with Housemarque. But we'll see. Anyway, that is the latest on Sony first-party development. We're gonna.
I guess theoretically that Venom game is this year.
Right, that's what I'm asking. Is there do they have another game that's coming before?
Well,
Wolverine?
according to that schedule that was hacked out of them, so Venom was supposed to be this fall.
Right.
But who knows if
it's even happening?
Yeah.
It feels like Venom has run out of steam. Just in general,
I wouldn't double down on Venom at this point. I mean, the movie didn't do amazing. Mm-hmm. The game was received well, but didn't. They clearly pulled the plug on all the DLC for it. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. Like maybe just buckle down on Wolverine and make sure that's what it needs to be.
I definitely think that's the right move. Yep, absolutely. Okay, we're about to go over PlayStation 5 in 2025, but before that, here's a word from our sponsor, LS Cream. LS Cream is a fine cream liqueur created by fellow gamer and sifter Stevens Charles. It's inspired by an ancestral recipe from Haiti called Crémasse, and a double gold winner for its original taste at the New York Wine and Spirit International Competition. LS Cream can be enjoyed on the rocks or as a mixer for drinks with its rich blend of fresh cream and neutral grain spirits with notes of coconut, vanilla, cinnamon, and nutmeg. It's great in coffee or to make espresso martinis. To learn more, discover amazing drink recipes, or to track down your own bottle using a handy store locator, head to creamls.com/sifted. That's creamls.com/sifted. See some people in chat talking about LS Cream. Minority Game says, I just got my LS Cream. It is fire. My ancestors appreciate it. I've been telling you guys, it is flipping awesome. We are not just blowing smoke up your butts. LS Cream is the bomb. And again, after you have it for a little while and you start experimenting with it, you'll start to realize how many different things you can mix it with, and it still tastes great. Go to creamls.com/sifted. Try to use that URL if you can. If you're watching this show on YouTube, there's a link down in the description that you can click. You just go straight to being able to get the bottle sent to you. So if you're looking to get one sent to you, you don't want to go to your local liquor store, you can get it shipped right to your door. Again, there's a link down in the description on our YouTube description that will help you get the LS Cream. You need it. Everyone needs the LS Cream. Again, go to creamls.com/sifted. And with that, it's time to preview PlayStation in 2025. There are a couple kind of big internal studios, although one is really not internal. One is made by Hideo Kojima, which might as well be a Sony first-party studio at this point. It is making games for Xbox, but it seems like it gives preferential treatment to PlayStation whenever it's appropriate. But first, we're going to talk about Ghost of Yotei. And think this is coming out this year, Matt?
Probably.
Yeah.
It's been 5 years.
If you go to PlayStation.com, it is the game there. It is every graphic has Ghost of Yotei. It has its own little mini site.
Well, what else would they have?
Right? I mean, you're right. Like, what else are you going to promote? But if,
like that or Death Stranding is really your only two heavy hitters that we know of, and we don't even know that much in terms of timing.
I mean, all we have from this game...
It's been 5 years. It feels like it's time. It feels like it's about time for a new thing from Sucker Punch.
I don't remember. Did they do the PC version of of Ghost of Tsushima?
No,
they did not.
I don't remember who did that, but
so they weren't pulled away for that.
I mean, I'm sure they were involved, but they were not doing it 100% themselves.
They weren't doing all
it was another. I can't remember the name of the developer, but it was. I remember
Nix's maybe. Nix's does a lot of their PC stuff.
Maybe.
But man, they have to be a big studio because that's a lot of projects for one studio to be handling. As you guys know, Ghost of Yotei is the follow-up to Ghost of Tsushima. It's an open-world samurai game, basically. In this game, you discover the samurai Jin Sakai and his transformation into the legendary Ghost. So it's kind of like a prequel. Is that right?
No, it's 500 years later.
It's 500 years later?
Yeah.
So it's not about...
I mean, I think she discovers the history of him.
Okay,
of what
gotcha.
he did in the first game.
So she discovers the history of the Ghost.
Yeah.
Basically.
And is inspired by it.
Yep.
To defend her island, Hokkaido, against the Japanese invading forces.
Yeah. It's set in 1603, and Atsu is her name? Is that right?
Sure. I don't remember. 1603. Maybe it's more like... That's more like... No, it's almost It's like 400 years.
Yeah.
Because the first one is like 1200 something or 1300 something.
Yep. They sets out on a journey to the lands surrounding Mount Yotei, an area filled with sprawling grasslands, snowy tundras, and unexpected dangers. And that's all we really have on this game, honestly. They haven't released anything but this one trailer. They haven't done any interviews about it. They haven't released any developer docs talking about the development of the game.
It does seem like you're going to have wolf friends.
Yeah. It feels like they need to ramp up the marketing for this if it's truly coming out this year. Like, we should start seeing a lot more stuff around this in the very near future. At least I hope so. But as of right now, like, on PlayStation.com, this is the game. Like, this is the game that's everywhere. It's on all the graphics. It sure seems like Sony thinks it's coming out this year. It'd be a little weird to yank the carpet out from underneath fans, building it up like that, and then...
I mean, if they're putting it out on this... I mean, obviously, they don't have a lot else to push on the store, but if they're doing that, it usually indicates that they know that's one of their next things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Then again, since there's nothing else, their next thing could be next year. We don't, but 5 years feels like a pretty good gap for. I mean, I know they did the DLC, all the stuff. They did a lot of post-launch support for Tsushima, so probably more like 4 years of full development on this. But like, that's about right. And the game again, Sucker Punch, I think, does a smart thing where they don't the actual graphics tech on these is not cutting edge, really, in comparison to some of the other stuff that like Naughty Dog and Santa Monica are doing, but they look better. Like the art style, the aesthetic, the color. I mean, nobody uses color in the AAA space like Sucker Punch.
Yeah,
I still have screenshots from the PS4 version from 2020 of Tsushima that are better looking than almost anything I have from anything.
Oh, yeah.
Like just the aesthetically pleasing qualities of what Sucker Punch puts out.
And this looks like it's following right in the same footsteps. It just
looks
amazing.
And like that wolf's fur is not like the best fur I've ever seen.
Right.
But like that's an advantage because it means is yet another thing that's not going to take them forever to do.
And this does look better than Ghost of Tsushima.
Looks great. Oh no, it's much more open. It's
not like it doesn't look better.
A lot of stuff happening that couldn't have happened in the first one.
Yeah. I'm very excited for it. It's one of my most anticipated games of the year. I'm sure it is for you as well.
Yeah. Very few things would be higher than that.
What percentage chance do you think that it comes out this year?
I'm going to give it like a 75.
Yeah?
I think, I don't, if that's not coming out this year, I wonder what is.
You're about to find out what is or is not coming out here in the next like 10 or 15 minutes. I'd agree with that, around 75%. I think definitely more yes than no.
Yeah.
There's still some concern.
I mean, obviously anything can happen.
Yeah.
But like it feels like Sony's pretty sure.
Sony needs this game.
Yeah.
This year. It needs this game, without a doubt. So we'll see. That's Ghost of Yotei.
More importantly, I need this game.
Yeah, we all do. Absolutely. Next up, the other big game that's not quite first party, but kind of, is Death Stranding 2, Kojima's sequel to his FedEx delivery simulation. I will say this. I am way more interested in this than I was in the first Death Stranding. Because if you've noticed, it feels like the whole courier thing has kind of gone away.
Maybe. I don't know.
It feels more Kojima, like more character-driven, like narrative-driven.
I mean, I guess the first one was if you could make it through the
right. If you could fight
stupid
through
open world shit.
Yeah. And I will be curious, too, to see exactly what they change about that part of the game, the courier part of the game. Because that's really what lost my interest. I know some people really liked it. It was kind of like what they call a cozy game or whatever. This scene also freaks me out. I'm not going to watch it again. It gives me the heebie-jeebies. I'm going to fast forward. And here you get to what we all know and love, or maybe not love, but we all know that Death Stranding is, where you're getting from point A to point B with big, heavy packs on your back. I will hand it to Kojima. I mean, he got people to buy this game.
Yeah. Although not as many as I think he hoped.
Yeah, but still, like, this is a pretty far-fetched idea, and he got a lot of people to buy into it.
It's pretty crazy that he got to make 2 of these.
Yeah. I mean, it is. Honestly, it's nuts that there's a sequel to this game. But again, this looks way more interesting to me than the first one did. Like, the first one looked interesting until I started playing it. And then I was like, this isn't interesting at all. I'm just hauling stuff from point A to point B.
I don't know. I mean, it mostly looks the same to me.
Yeah? You think so?
I mean, obviously the settings are different. He's in front of the moon or whatever. But, like, it just, he's running slow, and he's kind of probably running out of stamina already in that shot.
Mike Q says no shade, but I just have no interest in Death Stranding. It moves nothing for me.
Like, I appreciate the imagination on display in Kojima's stuff, but it's like, this is gonna suck.
I mean,
this is gonna be boring.
That's the thing about Kojima. He has a very vivid imagination. Like, he definitely comes up with, like, concepts and situations that are unlike any other game makers.
Yeah,
like, but ultimately you have to play the game.
Yeah, you have to play the game, and that's the problem.
Yeah.
I would probably watch, like, a Death Stranding movie or something.
I would absolutely go see a Death Stranding
because it probably still would be pretty stupid, but it'd be over in 2 hours.
Right.
Okay, it'd be over in 3 hours. We know him. But at least I wouldn't have to play this stupid delivery boy shit.
I never finished the first Death Stranding either. I'm wondering if that's something I need to do.
I tried to power through the director's cut when the Epic Store gave it away for free or whatever, and I got like halfway through this time. I just hit a point where like the deliveries get tougher, and I got run into areas where I'm just like, I'm trying to do this thing, and there's all these BTs or whatever they are in front of me, and I know where they are, and I want to get around them, but I can't keep getting caught for reasons I can't understand. And, like, I just
screw it.
Gave up. I just didn't.
Later.
I wasn't having fun, and I got annoyed, and I didn't come back to it.
Yeah.
Maybe one day I'll go back to it and just, like, I don't know, throw on a cheat engine thing and just, like, run through everything and just so I can see the story or something.
Yeah. JM Rain says, I love the gameplay. It allowed for a kind of meditative state. That's what I was getting at when I said cozy game. Like, it's one of those games that you just kind of settle into and just fall into a pattern.
It certainly can be, but then, like, the first time and the second time I played it, I hit that little bottleneck where I'm like, I don't know how to get around this. I have to get through here, but I don't understand how to get through here. And I thought I understood how the game worked, but it just looks like I'm just blocked up. I don't know what to do, and I don't have enough stuff to fight these things. And I mean, I'm not kidding. I tried like 5 or 6 times on some of those things. I was like, I don't know what else to do.
If I'm playing a game just for enjoyment, something like that will make me stop playing.
Yeah.
Sometimes you have to play stuff for our show, and I'll power through. But if I'm just playing it for fun and I get to a point like that,
I mean, even then, like,
shut it down.
That's about as much effort I'll put into like a Dark Souls game. Kojima's not getting more out of me than From is. Like, I'll tell you that much right now.
Yeah.
Like I did like it sometimes when like you'd hit a point where like you knew where you were going and you'd been somewhere before, and maybe you were in a part of the game where they really open up the strand.
That was the coolest part of it
strand
to me,
stuff,
was the
where, like,
highway system.
Yeah, you're driving around on the highways and like everybody's like contributing to the thing. Like, that was cool. Like, that was an interesting idea, and like it was cool that if everybody cooperated well enough, everybody's game got easier.
Right.
Like, that's an interesting idea. And it looks like, I'm sure he has new ideas for that in this one.
Are you sure?
Yeah, he always has some weird. I mean, it doesn't mean it's going to be better.
Right.
I mean, the fact that you see that bridge collapsing is sort of like, oh, are they going to like die now if you don't put enough stuff into them, or decay or whatever, like everything else? Because they didn't really do that in the first one.
Yeah, we have to maintain them now, which might be annoying.
Yeah, it's like that's what I needed to add onto the UPS simulator was like
Fixing
regular maintenance. Yeah.
Yep. What do you think the chances are that this comes out in 2025?
I would say like 40%.
Really? You
Like,
think it's that low?
Yeah, I don't think it's very likely.
I mean, they're in crunch right now.
Yeah, but crunch can last a long time.
It can, and as we talked about in last week's episode, Kojima is not doing well in crunch at his age.
At some point, I could potentially. I mean, depends what kind of pressures and what kind of investments are on them, but like I could see him like slowing it down, and being like, we need to take this a little slower because it's killing me.
Yeah, and this is like my opus, so we can't screw it up. I would give it a 60% because also just like Ghost of Yotei, the other game that's plastered all over PlayStation.com is Death Stranding 2.
Yeah, but I'm more willing to chalk that up to hopefulness.
Maybe,
because I think Sony probably has a better idea of where Sucker Punch is than Kojima.
Maybe, yeah. So we'll see. But as of right now, Death Stranding is scheduled for 2025, and it is in crunch right now. So if it doesn't make it this year, it'll probably make it out first quarter of next year would be my guess. We don't know how long they've been in crunch, though. We just know they're in it right now, and Kojima's complaining about it. So we'll see how that goes. But as of right now, it is scheduled for 2025. So the two biggest first-party games are Ghost of Yotei and Death Stranding 2. If you're a PlayStation 5 fan, those are the two games you should be rooting for in 2025. Now we're going to get to some of the other stuff. And when I say other stuff, I mean like games you may not even remember exist.
Games you may have tried to forget.
And the other thing I would say, too, about pretty much every game we're going to discuss here, there's a couple exceptions, but pretty much every game we're going to discuss for the rest of this PlayStation 5 section or preview of 2025 are also coming to PC. They're not coming to other consoles, but most of them are also coming to PC. So they're not even pure exclusives, but they're console exclusives. First up, Phantom Blade 0. This is like this year's Black Myth Wukong, as far as I can tell.
Another dark, mythologically based Dark Souls clone that looks the same as all the others.
That's set in the East and will appeal to people from the East the most, although, Black Myth Wukong certainly reached beyond those boundaries for sure. I don't know as much as like people think. It's hard to tell how popular that game really is because it does feel like some of those Eastern countries rallied around the game and wanted to prop the game up, which is awesome. But it's hard to tell, if it were just another game, how well it would have done. But this, to me, kind of looks like this year's Black Myth Wukong. Are you interested in this?
No.
It feels like you're starting to burn out on the Souls-likes, Matt.
I mean, I've been burnt out on the Souls-likes that aren't made by From for a very long time.
Yeah.
Like, they're just not on the I mean, why would I play some of this stuff when I could just go play Elden Ring again? I didn't even like playing Elden Ring again when they did when the DLC came out. It was just sort of tedious.
What was the game that tipped you over on this subgenre? Was it the Pinocchio one?
I mean, I didn't like that one very much.
What was that called again?
Lies of P.
Yeah, Lies of P.
I think it was actually the new Lords of Shadow.
Oh, really?
I just thought that was so unengaging and uninteresting and just tedious that it just really soured a lot of those ideas for me and just made me go, I'm just going to stick with From now on. I mean, I also didn't particularly like Black Myth Wukong a ton. Like, I thought it was pretty good.
It was okay. Yeah.
But it just, I have done this so many times just through the From catalog.
Right.
And I don't need to do it anymore.
I like the look of this better than Black Myth Wukong. This is more interesting to me.
I think some of it looks more interesting. I appreciate Black Myth Wukong's scale. Mm-hmm. Like, just the size of things in that was impressive. Yeah. Not just the opening, but like a lot of the other things you fought and like the areas. Like, but this looks like more interesting in terms of the combat, maybe like the violence of it is kind of cool. I'm more interested in sort of the weird mythology take. They're doing more of a creepy thing here, and Black Myth Wukong was doing more of kind of the the historical mythology from the Monkey King stuff. I have more interest in this kind of subject matter than the Monkey King story. I just don't really have much of a connection to the Monkey King thing.
Yeah. Mitchell Ness says he talked to the developers of Phantom Blade at IGN Live last year, and they said it's coming in 2026. Well, right now it is scheduled for 2025, so you may be right. They may have been giving you the skinny, but as of right now, it's being marketed as coming out this year. So we'll see if it does make it out this year. But again, I think this also is coming to PC. I don't think it's strictly PS5 exclusive.
Yeah, this is a PC, I think.
Yeah,
well.
But
which
again,
is fine.
Phantom Blade.
I don't think that really matters too much. Like, I don't think if it's on both, like, you're losing a ton of console people are console people for the most part, and there's a lot more of them than there are of us.
I like the traversal in this better than Black Myth Wukong as well.
There's some interesting stuff in there, but I just, it's gonna have to be really remarkable to pull me out of my
I mean, it's a Souls-like. I'm not gonna like it.
Yeah.
I'll play it for 4 or 5 hours and give up.
Well, it kind of depends what the stamina bar is like.
Yeah,
right?
That's true, actually. But I do think this game looks interesting. I do like its art, and I do like its aesthetic more than Black Myth Wukong.
Yeah,
so
this was the one when that first trailer ran, and everybody was like, "That's not real."
Right,
and
everyone thought it was fake.
It's real.
As it turns out, it is real. So you're right, though. That's a good sign.
I don't think I thought it was real. It looked too much like film choreography wuxia.
Mm-hmm.
And now that they've shown more, you're like, oh, okay, I see what the gameplay is that can formulate that into something. It's not as improvised as that first trailer made it look.
Yeah. Also, by the way, this is another game that kind of has a time limit. Your goal is to seek vengeance within 66 days.
Mm-hmm.
So there's kind of a time limit on how much time you have to sort of accomplish your mission. I don't know how
that's
binding that's going to be.
That's what Cheat Engine is for.
Right.
we don't do that in this house.
Fair enough. Okay, so anyway, that's Phantom Blade Zero 50-50, I think, whether it comes out this year. That'd be my guess.
I mean, it sounds like no.
Yeah.
So if they're saying
on the DL that it's not coming until 2026, it's probably not coming until 2026. Next up, game called Sword of the Sea. This is the next game.
Oh, right.
Yeah, people forgot this even existed. This is the next game from the team behind Journey, Abzu, and I believe The Pathless. Is that their other game that they made? A long time coming. And this really is a mashup of those prior games. This is absolutely Journey crossed with Abzu.
Mm-hmm.
It has elements of Abzu with the nature and nurturing stuff. And obviously, you can see, even though you're on a snowboard now, it still has the sand surfing stuff that we saw in Journey. So it is a perfect amalgamation of their prior projects.
That basically is the Journey shot
right
there.
Yeah, I think that's why it's in there. Yeah, to remind people. But it's like a snowboarding, skateboarding game, which is kind of crazy, honestly. It looks like they've got the physics engine and everything nailed. And then all this stuff is 100% Abzu. Mm-hmm. All the nature, revitalizing things. That's the aesthetic of that game. And we liked Abzu a good bit. Both of us did.
Yeah.
Back when it came out. But yeah, this is called Sword of the Sea. We don't have a hard release date for it other than 2025. How do you feel about this one?
Looks cool.
How do you like Journey?
I like Journey.
Yeah?
Compared
to other people. Because other people are it's the game of the forever. Some people really think it's their favorite game ever and stuff like that.
I wouldn't go that far, but it was a nice little experience.
Yeah.
I think I played it 2 or 3 times.
Yeah.
It's not that long.
Yeah, it's not.
My favorite thing the Giant Squid's made is Abzu.
Oh, really? It's your favorite, more than Journey.
I do like fish.
Mm-hmm.
But, I thought that was very well done.
I remember Ryan Stevens came into my office when Journey came out, and he's like, there's this game, you're going to look at it, and you're going to say it looks really dumb, and you don't want to play it. He's like, but you need to go home and play it. And I went home, and I was like, I get it. The other thing about Journey was how it had, the communication stuff. Mm-hmm. I thought that was really cool and interesting. I hope that they explore that a little bit more in this game as well. I'm never going to complain about getting another game from this studio. So I am excited for this, but again, really hard to figure out whether it has a hard release date, whether it's actually going to make it this year. I'd also put this one probably at 50-50 because all we have is this trailer so far. Anytime you have just one trailer for a game, it's a little dicey on whether that game is going to come out pretty soon.
Ashes in the Hourglass does point out that Giant Squid did not make Journey.
No, it worked on it, right?
It was a lot of the same people
that
left and formed Giant Squid.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So anyway, there you go. That's Sword of the Sea. That one might actually be PS5 only. I think that one maybe is not announced for PC yet, if I remember correctly. Next up, and this is what I'm getting at, though. These are the games that we're talking about for PlayStation 5 right now. We got to the 4th game, and it was Sword of the Sea. That's where it's at. Next up is a game called Where Winds Meet. Mm. In this game, you become a young swordmaster and embark on a journey to uncover the mysteries of your own identity. It's set in an era where political intrigue, power struggles, and epic battles shape the course of history. Okay.
Isn't that every period?
It feels like every game is like that. Every game on this list for PS5 does feel and look similar. This looks a lot like Phantom Blade Zero. You can just kind of swap these in and out and I'd be like, okay, sure. It is obviously another sword-driven hack-and-slash game. This one is also announced for PC right now. D'Angel Lynod says, Where Winds Meet is already out in China. It's a free-to-play game. Yeah. And it's obviously coming out into America, or to the West, here in 2025. Have you played it at all, D'Angel? And if you have, give us like a sentence or two about what you think about it. The Legacy says, I don't get the big deal about Journey and I beat it. Yeah, I think a lot of people feel that way, honestly. Because I liked it, and I found some elements that I thought were really cool, and it was a different experience, and I think we need that kind of stuff every once in a while. But yeah, I did, after I played it, I went back, and I'm like, it was cool, and I really liked the communication stuff, but at the same time, I was like, but it's not exactly all that interactive. It's more about a mood.
Yeah.
Journey is really.
It's a little bit of a walking simulator.
Yeah, it is. But one of the cooler ones.
It's good, yeah.
To be sure.
It's a memorable one.
Yeah. This game is just kind of blending in with all the others. Although this whole sequence here.
Yeah, this also is doing a lot of the wuxia stuff, which you wonder how well they'll translate that to actual gameplay.
D'Angel, do you actually fight in the trees like in this trailer? Oh, he says he didn't play it. Or she. I don't know if it's a he or she. If I do play when it's on PS5, it's on mobile now. It's one of those AAA free-to-play cross-platform Chinese games. Okay, thank you for the intel on that one. And again, I think since it is available in China, the chances of it coming out in the West this year are very, very good. But there you go. That is called Where Winds Meet. Next up, a game I am very excited for. It's a game called Baby Steps. It is literally a walking simulator where you play as this guy who's living in his parents' basement who has to learn how to walk. And it's literally like you as the player concentrating one leg at a time by putting one foot in front of the other. I never noticed that there's a bong there smoking on the table.
I never noticed that he's watching One Piece.
Oh, really?
Are you still watching One Piece? It's a Netflix
with a smoking bong on the table. This game looks awesome. Like, it could end up being really frustrating. What was that game where you're just like a dude in a pot with a hammer? And you're just climbing up hills?
Yeah, I don't remember. It's the same people that made QWOP.
Yeah.
Which is this basically this game with less production value.
Right. I feel like this game could very much be like the game with the dude
Getting Over It?
Yeah, Getting Over It. I think that's it. Yeah, I think that's what it's called. Yep. Getting Over It with Bennett Foddy. Thank you, Ash. It's in the Hourglass. I think this is the idea here is the same. Like, you can see where you need to go, and it seems like it should be so easy, but it's not. Mm-hmm. It could end up being very frustrating, but I do think that this is going to be a streaming classic.
Yeah, this is good for streamers.
And that happened with Getting Over It as well. It became a huge streaming game because you just want to see people get all the way to the top and fall down and watch their reactions and see how they can deal with it. I have a feeling that this game's going to be the same, except this game has some serious comedy in it, which is great. Some of this writing in this little scene here, this whole scene's hilarious, actually. Because it kind of breaks the fourth wall, where he's like, yep, I'm trying to learn how to walk again. You're just like, what? So anyway, this game is called Getting Over It. It is also coming to PC, but right now it is a PlayStation 5 console exclusive. All we have is this trailer. But the developers are very confident that it is coming out this year. We'll see. But I do think it could become one of those games that like becomes a sensation.
Yeah, maybe this would have been a good draft pick.
Yeah, I didn't trust it was coming out.
Yeah, same. And I didn't trust it was going to be any good.
I had it on my list. Because here's the thing, it could suck.
It could be really annoying.
And still be a huge game.
I generally do not like games that have bad controls on purpose.
Right. That make you like struggle on purpose, basically. Yeah. It's basically a test of patience is what it is. And I agree.
I also just don't understand. Like, I mean, I get that's the gimmick of the game. That's not how people walk. That's not how the center of gravity of a walking human works.
Yeah.
Like, it's very weird.
It's a very strange
I assume
game.
it's some kind of a dream or something, but
maybe. Or he's just high.
Yeah, it could be.
From the bong on the coffee table. Maybe that is the whole setup. He does a bong hit and he goes into this magical land. I don't know. But anyway, this game could suck and still be huge. Just because of the streaming aspect of it, where people are just watching other people play it to watch them get pissed off and frustrated. So, again, it is called Baby Steps. I'd probably give this one a 65-70% chance of coming out this year.
Yeah.
It seems like a simple concept. They showed this trailer a good while ago. Again, it is a game that we only have one trailer for so far, which does tend to make me a little bit nervous. Also, this part of the game would drive me bonkers.
Also, wasn't there two? I don't remember seeing this before.
They're what?
I thought there was like a teaser thing earlier, and then they should put this out later.
Maybe the teaser was just the basement scene, and I put them together for the B-roll. It's possible. But we haven't seen anything new from this game for a really, really long time, so it is definitely overdue. Hopefully, in the very near future, we'll get an update. But again, that is called Baby Steps, and I do think that is also coming to PC in addition to PlayStation 5. Next up, a game called The Midnight Walk. This is a game where you become the Burnt One and befriend a lost lantern creature called Potboy, and there he is. And then you use his flame to light your way through, like, basically it's kind of like a puzzle platformer in a lot of ways. The goal is to survive and outsmart all the monsters that are trying to devour your friend's flame. So they're trying to put the flame out, basically. I guess there's 5 different tales. It's almost like an anthology. There's like 5 different separate tales that you play through. And then obviously the art and the design in this is just a whole other levels. Like claymation, stop animation. We don't see enough stuff like this, honestly. There's that game Harold Halibut that kind of had a similar look to this, but not very many. I wish we had more games that did art styles like this, but then watch, nobody will buy it, and then it'll discourage other developers from doing it. But yeah, this is also a VR game, by the way. So PS5 is the only normal 2D console it's coming to, but then it's coming to all the VR helmets, which is odd. A little bit of an anomaly there in that regard. But it looks like a very unique game with a very unique art style. I hope we get more games like this in the future. But again, it is called The Midnight Walk. So you're starting to see the pattern here of the games that we have that are exclusives to PS5 in 2025. They're not big budget games. They're not big games, but some of them are kind of cool. And here's another one. This is called Showa American Story. It's a post-apocalyptic action RPG set in America that has been purchased by Japan. This game...
Very 80s.
Yeah. This game was supposed to come out in like 2022, and it was supposed to come out on PS4. The PS4 version has now been canceled, and it's been moved to PS5 to launch in 2025. So this game looks crazy. This also could end up becoming like one of those crazy sleeper hits where no one thinks it's going to be anything, and then it comes out, and people start streaming it.
Wow, Russian attack.
Yeah. So again, this is a very unique game, and it looks like a cool game, but it's not the kind of game that's going to sell consoles typically. At least it hasn't been in the past. Even though maybe it will. But again, this game is called Showa American Story, and it is just bizarre. I don't know what the taste is for bizarre games anymore, Matt, because we don't get them anymore, because everyone's so afraid of risk. It's like... nobody wants to take a chance on games like this.
Grasshopper Interactive, we barely knew you.
Seriously. I mean, they've been gone for so long. They're the ones who used to do stuff like this. So this game looks really cool. And again, it was supposed to come out in 2022. And here we are 3 years later. So the developers have had plenty of time to polish this game up and get it to a good state before it ever launches. But this is one to keep an eye on. Another thing I should remind you guys of on SIFTD is you can follow games.
Ashes now got Showa isn't the Holocaust documentary. No, I'm pretty sure it's SHOWA.
Yes,
SHOWA. As in the Japanese Emperor era, like the Showa era of whoever that was.
Yes, SHOWA.
Yeah, it's like how the original Godzilla series is called the Showa series.
Mm-hmm. It's cool how they've repurposed, though, like so much American pop culture stuff, San Francisco, LA, and they've reimagined it as if Japan has owned it, which is, I just think it's a really cool idea and a cool concept. We'll see if they execute on it, but again, I think this could be one of those sleeper hit games where people don't even realize it comes out, people start streaming it, and next thing you know, it becomes a hit. So we'll see. Again, it's called Showa, SHOWA, American Story. Next up, a game called Ballad of Antara. This is a free-to-play fantasy action RPG. It's set in dual realities, and the objective is you have to defend a faraway land on the verge of being lost to a conflict from eons ago. So you're basically jumping the two time frames, the eons ago that's trying to destroy the world, and then in the present world you're trying to thwart that. So these games are always hit or miss. These games where you work in dual realities. The Medium obviously had its good points and its annoying points. It feels like most games that do that, like it almost feels like they've run out of ideas on how to manipulate these situations in video games at this point.
Yeah, man, this looks the same as everything else.
It does,
which is weird because it looks very strange. Like it's like the idea that this looks generic now is bizarre.
It really is.
Because it's a few years ago it wouldn't have.
We just looked at 30 minutes straight, basically, of games that look almost identical.
It's just like maybe it's time to give Dark Fantasy a rest.
Yeah. And this one is also free to play, just like the game we mentioned earlier, Where Winds Meet.
I mean, I'm definitely more optimistic about the free to play idea of these things after Infinity Nikki, because at least that seemed to be a pretty full-fledged game.
Yeah. I mean, that's what we're getting now. These free to play games are legit action RPGs. Like,
I mean, China just does this way better than Western companies do. I think, because they make actual games,
right,
instead of like Skinner boxes.
Yeah, I just wonder how much longer you can keep charging $70 for action RPGs when these free games are getting so good.
Well, I mean, part of it is just the scale of their market there. You know, you just have way more people who can play it.
That's true.
And so
as long as you don't want to play after 8 o'clock.
But it's like the scale of that market doesn't translate to Western markets.
Yeah.
Like, so basically, if it's not already coming from China, where it has that already stable base of this huge player base that just is, you know, even the percentages of people who are interested, even if they're the same here and there, just equals way less people here.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you could do that in reverse. You know, I don't know if you could make one of those here and hope that China cares later.
Highly doubtful.
It seems like a very big risk.
That would be a fool's errand, I think. I would not do that at all. Yep. And that is it. Those are all the PlayStation 5 console exclusives. Keep in mind, most of those games are also coming to PC. Those are the only PlayStation 5 console exclusives that are right now announced for 2025. And as Mitchell Ness pointed out, one of those is probably slipping to 2026 as well. That's it. Now, we have a couple other games I'm going to bring up here, but these are, to me, are extreme long shots. Fair Games. One of the games as a service that has not been canceled yet. This is being worked on by Jade Raymond and her team. I mean, to cancel Jade's game, that's when you would have egg all over your face. I don't think that'll ever happen. I think this game is definitely going to come out. Whether it comes out this year?
Maybe. When was the last thing Jade got to ship? I Am Alone?
Probably. Because at EA Massive, she did nothing.
No. Well, she did a lot, but they canceled it.
Yeah.
I think it's been like 13 years since we played a Jade Raymond game, at least.
That's insane. And why is she working on this? A live service game?
I don't know.
Again, trying to put a square peg into a round hole.
I think that was just what was available at the time, you know?
It's like, this is what we want you to make, and if you want a gig, then make it. And she's probably like, okay.
Mm-hmm.
But
I will always be angry we didn't get her Star Wars game. I would have liked to have seen what that would have been.
Oh, yeah. At least we're going to get Amy Hennig's, kind of. We're getting at least a Marvel game from Amy. But
someday.
Yeah. This looks like a heist extraction shooter, though.
Yeah.
There's so many of those already. By the time this comes out, will it matter? I don't know.
Will it come out?
Will it come out? I don't know. I mean, I'd put the chances of this coming out this year at like 25%, something like that. This is the only trailer we have for the game. It doesn't show any gameplay. It's all CG. We haven't seen the game at all yet. So for it to come out this year, slim to none. 25% best case scenario, I would say. Next up, Marvel's Wolverine, under development in Insomniac. Matt mentioned it a little bit earlier. I mean, all we have is this 15-second teaser that we've now been running for like 3 or 4 years here.
Well, we also have a bunch of leaked footage.
Yeah. Game's pretty far along, but not that far along.
No, the leaked, the hacked schedule had this for next year, fall next year.
Yeah.
And I don't see any reason that would change.
I don't either. Unless the game that Insomniac was working on, they bailed on or it was canceled, and then they picked this up. Then maybe there's a slight chance, but probably not.
That doesn't seem like a great idea.
Yeah, it doesn't, honestly.
They seem to have a schedule, and I imagine they will want to stick to it. It's like there was this like late next year, and then Spider-Man 3, and then X-Men in 2030.
Yeah, and then they get into like all the final Fantastic Four stuff after that, right?
No, there was nothing after X-Men.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
But theoretically, they could. I mean, I would imagine Marvel would trust them with whatever they want.
Yeah, and they should.
And I think because X-Men was basically considered Wolverine 2. So clearly...
Oh, okay. So Wolverine's probably going to be in X-Men.
Oh, yeah. Definitely. So, and that will be around the time that X-Men, the movies, are starting to come out. So,
and that's when I will probably start caring about the MCU again.
I'll be very synergistic.
I think that's when a lot of people will start caring about it again. So anyway, Wolverine, 5% chance, zero. Really, though. It's really zero. And then the last game we can even talk about is Intergalactic from Naughty Dog, which they just showed at the Game Awards for the first time. The chance of that coming out this year, 10%, I would say.
Nothing. I think there's no chance.
Yeah. And so that stuff that we just went over.
There was way too much like, we can't wait to talk to you more about this rhetoric around this for this to be anywhere near done.
Yeah. Even though it has been a long time since Naughty Dog put out a new game, it takes a long time to make its games, and that's why its games are great. But yeah, this may not even come out in 2026.
Yeah, maybe.
I hope it does. Because that's a really long time for a studio not to put anything out. But
they're getting Last of Us Part 2 remastered or whatever the hell.
The other crazy part about it is it's not like Naughty Dog's games are all that long. They're not like these 60-hour games that you play for
but they are very fine-tuned.
I'm sure, and they're amazing. Like the craftsmanship in their games is pretty much second to none. But when you ultimately play them, they're usually like 14 or 15 hours long. And it takes them 7 years to make a game.
Yeah, well, the length of the game has nothing to do with how long it takes to make the game.
Well, it depends on the design. Open world games, you're right, because you can just populate a bunch of crap out in the open world and just put objectives out there, and there's 30 hours. But games like this that are a little more like linear and structured, it's like, I don't know. It feels like you can kind of do that.
I don't think that's how development really works now. And Vincent actually says, I think the chance we see more of this year is 10%. Yeah, that's probably pretty on target, too.
A chance that we'll see more
of this at all. Like, not come out, just they'll show more.
Oh, we'll get another trailer for this year.
Maybe.
We'll get something for it.
See at the Game Awards.
Yeah, maybe the Game Awards. It may be at not E3 as well, where they show something. Majoratan says, if there's no future trailer using the track Intergalactic from Beastie Boys in it, it'll be a missed opportunity. I mean, it's a no-brainer.
I don't think it will because it's not set in that era.
Yeah, you're right.
It's set in 1986.
Right, that song's too new for that. Yeah.
Intergalactic is too. Yeah,
Beastie Boys were making punk rock and hardcore.
You could definitely put Beastie Boys in this, but it wouldn't be Intergalactic.
You could put License to Ill in it.
Yeah,
their first hip hop album for sure. Yeah, or you could put Cookie Puss in there, their punk rock album.
I imagine this is going to have an amazing soundtrack.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I would love to actually do this for a job.
She's hunting Kumail.
What is that job called? It's like a music supervisor or something.
Yeah, music supervisor, music coordinator.
I would be very good at that job. But I don't know how you get that job. I really don't. How do you get that job?
You got to work your way up through sound stuff.
Yeah, I guess you're right. And just and someone sees that you have a knack for it or whatever. Yeah.
You got to make the best Spotify playlists ever.
You may be right, actually. E-Demon says, I also don't think any of the Uncharted games ever played well. Yeah, I mean, they didn't play poorly, but you're right. Like, the gunplay never felt great.
Yeah, the gameplay wasn't the star.
No.
There were definitely points, even in Uncharted 2, which is my favorite of the Uncharted's.
Me too.
By the last third of the game, you're kind of like, get on with it.
Yep.
Like I think we had 3 or 4 or too many little shootouts here before we just got to the end of the fucking game. Yeah. Like that happens a lot in the Uncharted's.
Yeah. Eventually, they just start letting you just headshot everybody with the cursor goes right to their head. And
the Uncharted's always had weird headshots to me. It always felt like the game wanted to aim a couple pixels above everybody's scalp.
Yeah.
And so like you're always kind of readjusting down to their face.
Yeah.
And after about 10 hours, you're sort of over it.
Yeah, it's true. Major Skittle says, whatever happened when an Uncharted took like 2 years to make? No, you're right.
Yeah.
Generation was the last.
Right, but I think part of
took 2 years.
I think part of that is because like the Uncharted didn't really change.
Yeah.
It was just you had to write a new story and actually do all the animation and do the graphical work.
Pieces,
but you basically had the same gameplay.
Yeah.
And for something like Intergalactic, they basically have to completely make a new system. They've never done anything like that before.
But then The Last of Us Part 2 took a really long time to make.
It did.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think they were making a lot of tech up out of whole cloth for that one.
That could be. Yeah.
I don't think they have to do that so much in Intergalactic, but I think Intergalactic is a very different beast.
There does come a point where you're like, if you watch like any of the developer
and who knows, maybe this is some of the mismanagement that Schreier's talking about.
Yeah.
Like we don't know what it's like in there.
Well, what I was going to say is if you do watch like a developer doc that goes behind the scenes with Naughty Dog, they will talk about how, like, I remember there was one scene they showed where a Jeep had flipped over and Drake was trapped in the Jeep, and the Jeep inside was catching on fire. And this developer doc that I watched, they talked about how it took like 2 months to get the flames just right on the radio, like inside the Jeep. And you're sitting there and you're saying, yeah, that looks amazing. But 2 effing months? No, there's a certain point where it's like not worth it. And like, if you can cut that down to like a 4-year development cycle from a 7-year development cycle, it's okay to me if the flames aren't dancing across the radio.
That's just what Naughty Dog. That's how Naughty Dog is.
Yeah, I know.
You know?
I know.
It's like the train sequence. The first thing they started, the last thing they finished. You know, they spent the whole there was a group of people that just worked on that train sequence in Uncharted 2 the entire time that game was being made,
and it paid off.
And it pretty much does pay off.
Yeah. But not all those moments are incredible. It's like the average person playing that game would not have noticed the flames dancing across the radio.
No, but as Red Letter Media once said about some of the plot flaws in Star Trek, you might not have noticed, but your brain did.
Right.
I think that must be up on a wall at Naughty Dog somewhere.
Yeah.
The same with all the, you know, look at all, like when all the debris and mud and dirt, everything that flies around in that Uncharted 4 sequence where he's dragging by the rope on all those things. It's like, do you need to have all that stuff happening there? No, but like your brain appreciates it in terms of
it's like
immersion.
the Jeep had the gas can in the back.
Yeah, it's the same scene.
And the thing the whole time is shaking around inside the cage that it's sitting in, like. You notice it. Yeah. You're like, that's cool, but is it worth taking 7 or 8 years to make a game?
I don't know.
Yeah.
Like, it seems to be for them.
Yeah.
And when you got a perfectionist like Druckmann in the driver's seat, that's just what's going to happen.
That's the way it's going to be.
But, you know, you can have that attention to detail and not take forever. Like, I know the guy whose job it was on Spider-Man 1 was to one of his specific jobs was Otto Octavius's turtleneck. Like, making sure the turtleneck neck like rotated around and didn't rotate, like animated properly with his neck as a turtleneck would. And it spent like a year on that, and it's like that's just one person.
That's why you never see video game characters putting on clothes. Like,
well, that's why when
certain scenes.
That's why her putting her jacket on in that trailer is a giant flex.
Yeah,
like that's the same. Look what we're gonna do, and they still cut away. She gets it and starts to put it on. They cut away, and she's got it on.
So
they don't fully have it
for
on
like 2 weeks.
But same thing with like that scene where Ellie takes her shirt off in Last of Us 2 probably took somebody half a year.
Yeah. Yeah, I just wonder if it's worth it. Like, because we just went through this year's software lineup right now for PS5. It is so barren.
Well, here's the thing. I'm not willing to boil that down to worth it.
Yeah.
That's art. That's what they're doing. Like, I'm not going to put a price tag on that. If Sony's willing to foot the bill for that shit, who fucking cares? Like, make it as good as you can make it.
Well, I would like to play more Naughty Dog games than one every 8 years.
Yeah, I'll play them when they come out. There's plenty to play.
Yeah. Not plenty as good as their games, though, unfortunately.
My backlog is longer than my lifespan that I have left.
Oh, me too.
Like, I don't, like, it's not a concern.
Yeah. I just would like to be able to play more high-post games like that before my time is done, so I would like to see them produce a little bit more quickly than they are.
Right, but then they won't be that.
Yeah. Maybe someday. They'll figure out techniques and things like that where it doesn't take quite as long.
Well, that's what they're trying to sell these executives on AI for, but it's not going to work out that way.
No, it's not. Yep. Well, there you go. That is the 2025 PlayStation 5 preview. We've now done Xbox. We've done PlayStation. Next week's show, we'll tackle Switch and maybe a little bit of PC/third-party stuff and get you prepared for 2025 like we do every year with our previews for each platform. But not looking like a great year. What's your overarching kind of opinion on what we just talked about there? I mean, that's a pretty discouraging...
There's a lot of stuff in there I want to play, but, like, you know, it is lacking... kind of the PlayStation pillars of a God of War or a Naughty Dog or an Insomniac. But Ghost of Yotei, Ghost of Yotei is, if you're going to line up a bunch of stuff in front of me and from Sony's like kind of theoretical catalog and say which one do you want, I'd probably pick Ghost of Yotei ahead of anything except maybe Intergalactic.
Yeah.
Like, I'm a Sucker Punch sucker. So.
I was surprised to see that Ghost of Tsushima's Metacritic was like an 84.
Yeah, it got really lowballed. It's much like Spider-Man. Got weirdly lowballed.
Weird
in the reviews.
To me, it's definitely better than 84.
100%.
It has some faults,
and I like it even more playing on the PC version. Like playing it again years later, I'm like, this is really, really good.
Yeah.
Like it's just just, I mean, it is a little repetitive at a certain point because there's maybe a little too much to do at times. But no, that game is one of my favorite games of the generation, I would say.
Yeah.
Of the PS4 generation.
Yeah. Okay, let's move on. We're going to talk next about BioWare. This week, the director of Dragon Age The Veilguard left BioWare after working there for 19 years and having worked her way up through pretty much every job at the studio. She got to the top of the mountain. She said she did what she came to do there and got a new opportunity that she says she can't pass up, and she left. But
and her phrasing was it was something a lot kind of like it was like the best way to keep making the things you guys want me to make or something. It really had a abandoned ship quality to it.
People were freaking out.
And I think they should be because of how the response seems to have been to that internally and such. And this morning, it turned out that EA has decided that Mass Effect is not ready for a large team of that size, and they are redistributing most of the Veilguard team that's left to other projects outside of BioWare.
Outside of BioWare,
which means because they said Mass Effect is still not in full production; it's still in pre-production, which means if BioWare lives long enough to finish that game, we're talking about 2028, 2029, like 2030. Like Mass Effect is half a decade out, if anything.
What's going to happen at BioWare, do you think, Matt?
I think BioWare is going to be shut down.
Do you?
This year. Yeah.
This year?
Yes.
Wow. And they'll cancel Mass Effect?
Yes.
And you think Mass Effect will be a dead IP?
Yes.
Wow. How could you kill Mass Effect?
It doesn't. It's not even. It doesn't even sell as well as Dragon Age.
Really?
So yeah.
Is that true?
Yeah. Dragon Age has always outsold Mass Effect.
I did not know that.
No Mass Effect has even come close to what Inquisition sold.
I did not know that.
Like by millions of copies.
Really? What did Mass Effect 2 sell? Do you remember?
Can't remember. I think it was 6 or 7 million.
Really?
Dragon Age Inquisition sold 10 plus.
Yeah, I remember like
huge.
12 altogether.
Dragon Age is their biggest IP ever.
And it didn't do that great.
It did pretty well, but it didn't do
what they wanted.
It didn't do whether what they wanted was realistic or not is up to an exercise for the viewer. But it was a single-player game that had a single revenue stream and wasn't going to make any more money after the fact, and I don't think that looked too good on the balance sheet at the meeting.
EA also...
I don't think there was a way for them to win here.
Because EA also is spoiled by Ultimate Team. It just prints money from FIFA and Madden every year.
And I think the same kind of people who are thinking that God of War makes a good live service game are the people who are making these decisions. Right. And they're like, well, how come it's not making money like Football Club? Right. I don't think the brain power goes anywhere beyond that. I don't think the idea that there are different games that have different types of, the idea that you could make money by making a lot of these kinds of games on top of also doing live. I mean, there's a mix of two. These guys just constantly want steak. They don't want any vegetables. Mm-hmm. They don't want any side dishes. Yeah. And that's pretty much what these single player games have become to these companies that chase the infinite growth myth.
I mean, let's be honest. EA doesn't really release games like this anymore.
No, they don't really release games at all anymore. Yeah. They put out Madden and FIFA, or not FIFA, football. I'm always going to say FIFA, when I mean football.
EA Sports FC.
And they, maybe if we're lucky, they'll keep putting out the college football because that seemed to have done okay.
Yep, Apex Legends.
Apex Legends still exists, but again, that's not a new release. I mean, this game was weird just because it was a new EA game. You don't get those very often.
Right. I mean, again, EA does not release games like this anymore.
EA doesn't release games. How many did they put out last year? Like 3?
Says that there's still no sales figures disclosed for Veilguard, which is telling. You're right.
Yeah.
If they had sold really well, they would have championed it. They'd be screaming from the rooftops. It probably did okay. My guess is it probably sold 5 or 6 million copies, but I think they were counting on like 12 or 14.
Yeah, I think it sold very well early. I mean, I think it was their fastest selling game of all time early on. I don't know if it had any legs.
Why do you think this game didn't sell very well? I really loved it.
I think because it's been 10 years since the last one, and a lot of people didn't know what it was.
It's got completely snubbed at Game of the Year awards.
Yeah,
everywhere.
Very weird.
Everywhere.
I don't know. I thought it was very good.
Yeah, me too. I don't get it. I don't.
And I'm not even a big Dragon Age fan, but I thought it was good.
Yeah, I thought it was great. I had a blast with this game. So
you had a bunch. I mean, I think it wasn't really, people weren't aware of what it was. Maybe the advertising didn't penetrate beyond the usual kind of core group. In terms of the kind of the enthusiast gaming people, a lot of them are caught up in the fucking DEI grift bullshit, and considered this to be one of the flagship games of that, in part because the director was a trans woman. And it wasn't racist enough or something for it. I don't know what the fuck these people problem is.
I really it's like full there to try to read them.
So yeah, that was probably part of it, but like I don't know. Just didn't even my friend, a lot of my friends who do like things like this, like action RPGs or whatever, and like you'll bring up stuff to me. Even they didn't really know this came out, and I don't know why. Like it had
they did advertise.
It had advertising.
Oh, I saw it during NFL games. Yeah, for sure. They advertised it. They put some marketing behind it, but apparently not enough. So
I know some people like that I knew that are like big fans that didn't love some of the changes in the format, and they just thought it was a little too different. I do acknowledge it was different, but I think it was different in a good way, almost entirely. And there's an argument. I don't know how true it is. Some of my friends that are huge Baldur's Gate 3 fans say that Baldur's Gate 3 basically ruined RPGs for them. Mm-hmm. That like they don't want good. Like they don't want to play something else that isn't doing what Baldur's Gate 3 is doing, and Dragon Age is clearly following the BioWare model and not doing what Baldur's Gate 3 did. Which, I guess fair enough, but like you shouldn't even expect Baldur's Gate 4 to be like Baldur's Gate 3. Like, I don't think anyone's going to pull anything like that off ever again.
Well, there's not going to be a Baldur's Gate 4 from that team.
Right. They're going to try to replicate it, and it's going to not work the same way because nobody can do that.
Games Workshop is going to...
Yeah, Larian is kind of a singular entity here.
Maybe next game will be awesome.
Their next game will be something like that, sure. But I think there's some of that too, which is also like extra funny in comparison to the weird anti-woke people, because they actually prop up Baldur's Gate 3, even though it's one of the most like diverse and inclusive games I've ever played. But they can't say it's woke because it was super successful.
Yeah. Well, it's also D&D. That would be sacrilege.
Well, no, they say that about D&D all the time.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. Ever since they started making orcs not like basic evil. Like just giving orcs like a culture and a personality, and not all of them are evil. Like race, that's apparently bad.
Step too far.
Yeah, I don't know.
So you think that BioWare is going to shut down before the end of the year?
I think EA will shut them down.
Wow, that would be.
I think EA's been looking for an excuse for 10 years to do that, and here's
it's not really in EA's wheelhouse.
No, it isn't.
Do you think EA might sell the IP maybe to other publishers?
EA's never done that before.
I know.
They take everything they got and they throw it in a fucking vault. Like we could be on Wing Commander 10 at this point. We could, think of all the things they've got wasting away in there. Like the only thing I can think of that anyone managed to pry out of their fucking hands is Wasteland, and that was really because those guys who made Wasteland came back and were like, whatever you want for it, like bring it up.
Yeah.
And so I think they bought the IP from them because they don't care. But like no, it's so weird. There's so many weird little things. You could be making little Desert Strike games. You'd be like, but EA doesn't want to do small team stuff. But that's how you get the big stuff. You never get to $1 billion IP without a small team making something from scratch.
Yeah.
So if you wish to create the universe, wish to bake an apple pie from scratch, you must first create the universe, as Carl Sagan said.
Fair enough. So anyway, I hope you're wrong, Matt. I would hate to see BioWare. I
hope I'm wrong too, but I don't think I am.
Away. Yeah,
I think EA's been waiting for a chance to take BioWare out behind the abandoned Party City for a long time now.
The other thing I would say, you may not say it, but I'll say it. Like, some people.
I do, but they don't know. I mean, they don't work there anymore.
Yeah, but they are still friends with people.
What they've been doing, and to me, the thing from this morning where they dispersed a lot of the remaining team to other outside of BioWare projects, that to me looks like clearing the deck.
It's a red flag. It absolutely is. Yep.
So if that hadn't happened this morning, I don't know if I would be so adamant about like, I think they're going to shut them down.
Yeah.
But that really felt like a harbinger to me.
Okay. Let's move on. We're going to talk next about the PlayStation Vita. Actually, no, we're not. We're going to talk about Steam. So some data came out this week, Matt, that first of all, there were almost 19,000 games released for Steam in 2024. Of those 19,000, 80% of them had hardly any players. And most of them had none. Now, there's like designations on Steam. They're called like quality or something like that, where like if you don't include things like achievements and stuff like that, like Valve kind of buries your game. And it feels like a lot of these games were buried by Valve, but like what is what is this? Why is this happening? Why would so many people spend so much time working on stuff that no one is ever going to play?
Well, because they want to be a video game developer, I guess. Like, I mean, there's very little barrier to making a PC game and putting it on Steam for the most part if you can learn Unity or whatever.
Well, yeah, I mean, we worked with Lands of Hyperion here on GameFace. They sponsored us for a while. They were working on a small project with a bunch of sifters and made a lot of headway on that game. But
and you got, if you want to get hired by anybody, you got to have something to show for it.
Do you think that's what a lot of this is?
A lot of it is,
like
and it's like
a reel.
And like you're basically making a reel, but you might as well put it on. You might as well put it on Steam. It's sort of like
$1.
It's like if you made like a student film, you might as well put it on YouTube.
Yeah.
Why not? I think that's some of that.
Yeah.
And also it's just saturation. Like no one can play that many games.
Do you think Valve should be more stingy about things it's allowing on its platform? Because I do feel like discovery on that platform is like abysmal. Because of this. I
find stuff well enough, but I find it from outside.
I don't find it there. I don't discover it on Steam. I know what I want, and I go and get it.
Yeah, and like even the search feature is not very. Every once in a while, I'll search for Metroidvanias, and like I'm just like it just spits back stuff. I'm like, that's not what that is. Like, what do you get? People, the tagging on the games, even just for that kind of purpose, is useless. Like people can tag stuff as anything, I guess. Although in the vein of Metroidvania, because we're not going to talk about it this week, just go get Blade Chimera.
Oh, really?
Blade Chimera is one of the best Metroidvanias I've played in a very, very, very long time.
Wow. Okay.
Like really, really good. It's like $17 on Steam right now. Go get Blade Chimera. Anyway, if you like Symphony of the Night, go get Blade Chimera.
All right.
Anyway, yeah, I think this is pretty, it doesn't seem all that shocking to me, especially if you got 19,000 games coming out. It's also a symptom of like kind of this weird infinite growth thing that's hit all these entertainment worlds where it's like
we have to have 19,000.
You just need content.
We need
content,
20,000
content. And it's like this. It's like, and it's just people. A lot of it is like you saw one. How many of these are out? I mean, this year there's probably gonna be just as many, and how many others are gonna be there because of Balatro? Because somebody saw one guy make one thing and it blew up and sold 5 million copies, and that could be me, Like Zach is playing the lottery to some degree.
Yeah,
it's that kind of thing, and it happens everywhere. This is not just video games; it happens everywhere. Do you know how many board games are slated to come out this year?
200.
5,000.
Oh my God.
5,000. That is, there are more board games slated to come out in 2025 than came out in the 20th century.
Wow.
Combined.
And most of them are
and most of them are going to be nothing.
It's going to be like these games where nobody played them.
Yeah. Exactly. But it's like, it's been big business for these certain games that blew up, so everybody's chasing that rabbit now.
Tail, yeah.
And it's gonna lead to a collapse. It's gonna like this. You're already seeing it on Kickstarter with board games. I think you're gonna start seeing it with Kickstarters for video games are pretty much
they're
gone
over. It
now.
feels like
that's the end of that. Really,
it really does feel that way. But there's more games than ever still.
Yeah,
it's really crazy.
But it's like, but how many do you actually deal with? So I think there is and some of this isn't really that. It's not like people are putting out their whole livelihoods on the line to make some of these. Most of these thousands of games that are not being played by anybody. They're just sort of. Some of them are proof of concept. Some of them are just dumb little asset flips. I'm sure a lot of them are just porn. It doesn't matter. But like, it is indicative of just sort of that we're just going to throw spaghetti at the wall and to see what sticks.
Yeah.
Apparently
people can afford it.
It depends.
They're making the games.
Yeah, and there's a model for that. Like it's especially if you're budgeting properly. Like there was a comparison graph between. A24, the movie, independent movie studio, and Red One, the movie with The Rock and Chris Evans, that bombed, and it was for the cost of Red One was about the same as the cost of everything A24 put out last year, and A24 made double the money of Red One. Now, part of that was because Civil War was such a big hit, but even independent of that. It's like, well, what's the better strategy? To load up this crazy $250 million movie where The Rock's salary for Red One is the same as what Civil War cost total. So what's the better strategy? To sort of make a bunch of little things and kind of end up in the black at the end of the year? Or to take these big bets that could make you $1 billion, but also might lose you $200 million?
Yeah.
And the big studios, like EA, are going for the Red One model, and a bunch of these other companies and even these smaller publishers or just independent individual people are going for. We're going to do a whole bunch of stuff and see if we can kind of make up the distance.
I do feel like on Steam, you could release a pretty cool game and just still get buried.
Could be, yeah.
Like, that's, I think, the hard part to accept is, like, when you have 19,000... I mean, do the math. So you have 365 days in a year. You have 19,000...
Oh, I mean, go look at that new... Just go right now. Go look at that new release window. Little bar at the bottom of the store thing, and look how many things are there.
It's
and
insane.
See if you recognize any of them. There's
insane.
Nothing there, and half of them are porn.
I mean, that's the crappy part, is that there could be really cool projects like a Balatro that just doesn't get discovered by the right person, and it just flounders, or does nothing.
Well, I can't remember who said it. Yeah, I can't remember. Some author, I can't remember who said it, but basically he said... I am much less interested in the convolutions of Einstein's brain than in how many equivalent brains have died in cotton fields and poorhouses or something like that. Yeah. Basically, like there's all these, there have been geniuses that we will never know about because they never had the opportunity.
Yeah.
And there might be some of these great games that we'll never know about because they never had the opportunity to bubble up through anything. Yeah. And I think it does happen. I think Balatro is an example of that happening. Like, Balatro clearly didn't come out of, a big PR mill or anything. People just found it and the word spread. But, you can't count on that happening every single time.
For a long time, I never wanted to make games, but I've had an idea for a game in my mind for a long time. And over the years, I think about it here and there, and I feel like I've actually kind of got it to a place where I'm like, that might actually be freaking huge. But it's completely terrifying. Mm-hmm. It's like we do have a little bit of advantage. Like we have an audience. Like if you or I made a game that was pretty cool, like it would have a chance. Because there's enough people watching us here on Twitch, there's enough people watching the archives, enough people watching on YouTube, that there's enough thousands of people that if they all got on board with the game and it was actually good, it could do okay. But most people don't have that. Like they have 20 followers on social media or whatever. It's like... It's got to be a little bit discouraging, but maybe that's what we need.
I mean, that's how
maybe we need more people to be discouraged.
Right, but that's also how I'd feel if I was in a band right now.
Right. That's a good point, too. Because you're right, man. There are so many good bands. Like, there's too many. Yeah. Like, I went home for the holidays. I have a friend back there. He and I have been trading bands for literally, 30 years. Like, he and I are bros, and we always text each other, hey, I found this band. Hey, I found this band. We had been doing it back in the old days with, the Smiths and New Order and all that, and we've continued doing it for decades. We got together over the holidays and drank a couple beers with the money you guys gave us, by the way. I took a case of beer over to his house, and we just started sitting down sharing music. It was overwhelming. He had, 120 bands. I had 150 bands, and at a certain point, we're just like, this is insane. Mm-hmm. Like back in the 80s and 90s, we would have prayed for 5 bands that sounded like that, and now there's just thousands of them and they're great. Like it's very discouraging. I plan on making an album when I retire myself, and it's discouraging because there are so many really good bands. Like I listened to this band that nobody's ever heard of, and I'm like, damn, those songs are amazing, and it's very well produced. Like, will I be able to do that when I'm retired? Probably not. So I'm going to have to just do it for me. Like, it's never going to go out and, be a hit. Like, you're right. It's something you kind of have to accept. You have to set your expectations, I guess, because it is just so easy to make anything now compared to how it used to be. Like, just using, a program like Fruity Loops to make a track. That didn't exist back in the 80s and 90s. Like, you had to buy expensive-ass equipment to make music that sounded good back then. Not now. Like, anybody with a bedroom or a closet or whatever with a couple good mics can make amazing-sounding music. And in some ways, it's great, and in some ways, it can be very discouraging. And I think that's what we're seeing right now with Steam. And maybe the market needs to reset. Maybe 12,000 of those games, the people who are making them need to realize this is a waste of time. Yeah. I don't know.
But that's their choice to make.
Right, it is. And I don't know if that correction's ever coming. So we've talked about this before, and nothing's ever changed. The last time we talked about it, that number just got bigger. Now it's 19,000. And next year it'll be 21,000 probably. Mm-hmm. And a lot of great projects will just get lost in the mosh. So anyway.
But I think the alternative isn't that project getting known and successful. I think the alternative is that project never getting made at all.
Right.
So at least it's out there one way or the other.
That's true. Okay, and then our final topic for GameFace 418 is what I just hinted at. We're going to talk about the PlayStation Vita, which was a miserable failure for PlayStation, even more so than the Sony PSP. And what happens when Packer made a joke in one of his episodes, he's like, if you turn 60 at PlayStation, you're fired. And that's pretty much what happened with Shohei Yoshida, who we all love. To me, he is PlayStation. Like, he's the guy that I think of, other than the PR people we used to deal with. he's the guy, like the figurehead there that I resonated with and could have a conversation with. I remember when I left Game Trailers, he sent me a message the next day and was like, oh, no, what are you doing? You want to work at PlayStation? Blah, blah, blah. Like, I can maybe find... He's an awesome dude. And they just basically forced him out, is what I can gather from what happened. He was kind of forced out before because he was head of Worldwide Studios, and they demoted him from that. And he stayed there for a couple more years, and now finally he's left. Well, anyway, he did an interview with Kinda Funny, and they asked him about the PlayStation Vita. Because no one at PlayStation has ever talked about the PlayStation Vita, about what they thought, like why it failed, any of that
My
stuff.
favorite thing was Greg Miller asking him about the PSVR 2.
Oh, right.
Where he's like, you said it was going to be like, so it wasn't really like the PlayStation 1 and the PlayStation 2, was it? And he's like, no. He's like, can you elaborate on that? He's like, no.
Well, he did elaborate on the Vita. He more than elaborated, and he provided a lot of context. And to be fair...
One day, I think he will elaborate on PSVR 2, and it will be very interesting.
Yes. He did elaborate, and to be fair, most of it was stuff that we had complained about. So here's some of the quotes that he gave Kinda Funny. He says, we had to split all our resources into two different platforms, and we didn't have that resource. That is the number one reason he claims that Vita failed. So basically... They were in the same position Nintendo was in for a long time before Nintendo figured it out with Switch and was like, you know what? We're not making games for a handheld and a console anymore. We're making games for one platform. PlayStation could never do that, and that's why he said Vita failed the most. But he also says...
And Nintendo did that balance way better than they ever did.
Right. Well, he also goes on to say, well, there are multiple reasons why Vita didn't work. He says it worked in a way. People love playing the games, especially the indie games on Vita. But just loving games wasn't enough, unfortunately. He said several technical choices that they made as a company weren't good ones, one of which was the dedicated memory card. He says, I remember people being upset about how expensive Sony's proprietary memory cards were for Vita. It was a big mistake. He also says that back touch wasn't necessary. So if you didn't own a Vita, you may not realize it, but it has touchscreens on the back of the Vita.
That whole thing on the back they show with all the PlayStation symbols.
They're showing it right there.
There it is.
There it is. The perfect timing.
So dumb. Which in a lot of games meant you can't hold the system with your fingers there.
Yeah.
Which meant like you have to hold it a certain way, which is why it sucked to play the fucking system.
Yep. He said it was a mistake, that it wasn't necessary. He said the touchpad in the rear of the device, that most games didn't even utilize it. He said sometimes the team made amazing prototypes that felt really good, but the back touch added additional cost to the hardware. And he says that it just wasn't worth it because other developers didn't use it. Then he also goes on to talk about the OLED screen, which was kind of overkill. He said it was okay. It was a beautiful screen, but the cost was way higher, which also was a problem with the Vita in general. He also said that there was even initially a video out port on the dev kit that allowed the Vita to display games on a TV or a monitor, which would have made it...
Oh, you mean you could kind of switch between handheld and TV? Wow.
Yep.
Who would want that?
He said it would have been the precursor to Switch, but this was removed just to save a few cents per unit.
Oh, Sony.
Oh, what a mistake. I mean, don't forget, the PSP Go had an outport on it that you could plug into the TV.
Well, and also, let's be clear, it wouldn't have mattered.
Right.
Like
it's all the software.
The Switch isn't just successful because it can do that. It's because it can do that while playing really good games.
Right. Yeah.
That the Vita did not have.
Right. And that was their other problem, too. Again, going back to what he said, the biggest reason why it failed is because they had to split their development resources between the two platforms. So
I did like Shinobi Do 2.
Yeah. I mean, it had some good games. There's no doubt about it.
There's a few. But, like, again... They very specific, maybe it was even him who very specifically said at the beginning of the Vita that, like, we are not going to do what we did with the PSP. It's not just going to be a bunch of, like, watered down versions of games that are already on the PlayStation console.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what it was.
Yep.
Like, they did exactly what they said they weren't going to do, and it was pointless.
Swan Senpai says, I always got cramps in my hands with hands after a few minutes.
Oh, yeah.
On the Vita after a few minutes. It was very awkward to play games. If you tried to use the back touch, particularly, it like broke my brain a little bit. I'm like, wait a minute, I can't relax ever? Like,
God help you if you've got like large enough hands.
Right.
Like my hands were too big for it.
Yeah.
For the most part.
It was an awesome piece of hardware, but it just shows you that hardware doesn't matter. It's all about the software.
Like, I understand why, like, the instinct of Sony at the time, especially being Sony, would have been to, like, out high-end boutique the DS, but no.
Yeah.
Like, no one cared about that.
Yeah. So anyway, Shuhei may have some more.
And that memory card, just
That was a killer.
Terrible.
It was, to me, Matt, it was like twisting the knife.
Yeah.
It's like, this thing's really expensive, and there aren't that many games for it. So
then we want you to pay half the cost of the system again
Right.
to save your fucking game. Man.
And I did. I bought one.
Yeah, I got one.
And I think I got one, and I maybe played my Vita another 10 times after I got it.
I played it probably more than that. I installed a bunch of backwards compatible things on it, but like, no, it was totally not worth it.
Yeah.
It was completely
Great piece of kit, but just nothing to play on it, really.
Mm-hmm.
So I think Shuhei will start dropping some other bombs here in the not-too-distant future.
I want that PSVR dirt.
I'm getting the vibe that he wasn't too happy about leaving PlayStation. At least, I mean, he's a great guy, and the tone in the interview never really dipped down there. But like some of the questions they would ask him, if you really looked at his eyes before he would answer them, you could kind of see the real emotion around some of that stuff there. So he's an awesome guy. I hope he's already working on development and some other stuff. So he looks like he's getting back into the game. He's not actually retiring as PlayStation said he was. That happens every once in a while where the company says, oh, they're retiring. The Steelers have done that with coaches where they're like, oh, he's retiring, and then he goes and coaches somewhere else. It's like they're just trying to save face, basically, is what it is. So anyway, that's the real story about what happened with PlayStation Vita, although I think ultimately most of us kind of guessed that was the case because we had figured that out on our own. Why people weren't buying Vita, why I wasn't buying more games for Vita, why I used it for like 18 months and never really went back to it. It wasn't a puzzle to me. I totally understand what was happening there. So there you go. That's the latest on PlayStation Vita, straight from somebody who was there and lived it. And that came out in, 2011? Is that right?
That sounds right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Somewhere around there.
I think so. It was near the end of G4.
It's not even that old, if you think about it. But it feels ancient now. And if looking at the games running on that thing, they look ancient too.
Yeah. I mean, they were basically PS3 games.
Yeah. I mean, it was a portable PS3 for the most part. Yeah.
It did give us... no, that was PSP. Never mind.
Yeah. You almost thought of a game that was a good one.
Was it Persona 4 Golden? Was that a launch title for Vita?
PSP, I think.
I thought it was... Is that a launch title for Vita?
It was. But it originally was a PSP game, I believe.
Golden?
I think so.
I thought it was a launch title. I thought it was launch. Because that would be the one saving grace of the Vita.
I mean, there were a couple decent
Golden
games
was
on
Vita, yeah.
It was Vita? Golden was. Gotcha. Okay. All right.
Other than that, I just liked that was where all the Atlas games came from.
Yeah.
The PSP is, I mean, basically that.
Well, PSP became.
If you were an Ys fan, the PSP was a godsend because finally you got that whole series. Because otherwise you're just fucking stuck playing old TurboGrafx.
PSP was all about piracy. I mean, let's be honest.
Yeah.
Jailbreaking it and playing games illegally.
Yeah.
That's really what it was about.
I still have a pretty extensive PSP collection
Do you?
downstairs. There's mostly Falcom and Atlas games.
As I've said many times, I have buku UMDs. I have Ziplocs full of them. But anyway, I'll keep those around someday for preservation purposes. Maybe somebody will need that code because I have preview code, I have review code, I have final retails, just hundreds of them. There were a lot of games for PSP.
Oh, yeah.
But nobody bought any of them.
You want to talk about 19,000 games with no players.
That's a good point. All right. That's it for GameFace episode 418. But before we go, we have one more thing to do. So that's right. It's time for Name That Game, where I show you 5 screenshots from a video game, and you try to guess the name of the game before Matt Keil right here. Generally,
Zet Saber Juno, I would never forget about transfarring.
Oh, yeah, the transfarring with Kojima.
Yeah.
That was a Vita thing, right?
Yeah.
That was related to the Vita. Yeah.
Transferring data from Metal Gear or something. Transfarring.
It's hilarious.
Because it was far away.
Right.
Because it was.
Yeah. Very clever.
That was one of the. I remember being at that press conference, and it was one of the various times I've been at a video game industry press conference and just sat there like, "Am I losing my mind? Yeah. Am I the only one that sees that this is ridiculous?"
No, you were not.
And like Adam Sessler's next to me, going like, "No, you're not the only
elbow
one."
to the ribs. Adam's bony elbow into the ribs. It's like break your rib.
Yeah, every once in a while, one of us would just have to say, "What are we watching?
What is happening?"
And just, I don't know.
Yeah.
But I can't look away.
Yep. All right, well, it's time for Name That Game. Again, I show you 5 screenshots. You try to guess the name of the game before Matt. A couple things before we get going. Only one person has won this year, Cinetike, so everybody's in play. You can only win once every calendar year, and there's only one person who's won so far this year, so you guys are all in, except for Cinetike. Well, I haven't seen him here today, actually, in chat. Have you seen him?
I don't think so.
Yeah, I haven't seen him. Hope he's doing all right. So anyway...
there he is.
There he is. What's up? How's it going, Cinetike?
Go sit in the corner.
A couple things to keep in mind. Like I said, you can only win once per calendar year. You need to play PC games because we award PC games to the winner. So if you don't play PC games, don't play. Let somebody else win who will actually take the PC game. Now, if you have a friend who plays PC, that's totally cool. You can give it to a friend if you want to. I just want to make sure that the game is played, that we're not buying something that's just going to go into the ether. And then the final thing is that chat goes into slow mode, so you can only input one chat every 60 seconds. Don't just try to spam the chat with game titles hoping you guess it right. You're not. You're going to guess it wrong, and you're going to lose. So make sure you only guess when you think you know what it is, and you'll be okay. Are you ready to go, Matt?
Yeah.
Let me get the soundboard up here. You guys ready to play Name That Game? Here we go. In 3, 2, 1, go. That's a pretty good hint for the first image. Although Cinetike got last week's with one image. Prey, no. There's Body Harvest, nope. Deus Ex Human Revolution, no, but that is a good guess. Heavy Rain, no. Major
Heavy
Skittles,
Rain.
by the way, it was almost Heavy Rain. Heavy Rain was the other game that I was going to use for this, and I couldn't find good screenshots for it, and so I bailed and had to go to another game. That is very interesting.
Well, then is it Beyond Two Souls?
It is not. Deus Ex, no. The Surge, no. Heavy Rain, no.
It is, the window has a certain effect quality
It
that
does.
I recognize, but I don't know what it is.
Beyond Two Souls, no. Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, no. Quantum Break, no. Any other guesses on that first image? I gave away a lot. I usually don't give away that much on image 1. Mass Effect Andromeda, no, but that's also a good guess.
Sleeping Dogs.
Not Sleeping Dogs. Nope. Hitman Absolution, no. I can see where all these guesses are coming from, though. You guys are doing a good job. You just haven't hit it yet. All right, any other guesses before we go to image 2?
John Woo's Stranglehold.
Nope. Wow, that came out of nowhere. Wow. Out of the depths of the cranium right there. Watch Dogs 2, no. Any other last guesses before we go to the second image?
Max Payne 3.
Nope. Not Max Payne 3. Okay, going in 3, 2, 1. Okay, here we go to the second image. In 3, 2, 1, go! That could give it away too. Any guesses?
I think I know it, but I can't remember the name of the... Oh?
Wet, nope. Prey, no. Alpha Protocol, no. Brink, no. Portal 2, no. Surgeon Simulator, no. Fallout 3, no.
Yeah, I was going to say Fallout 4.
Couple Portals there, no. Psychonauts 2, no. High on Life, no. That's a good guess.
Yeah.
That's a really good guess, but it's not. Flashback Remake, no. Wanted Dead, no.
That looks too good to be wanted.
Yeah. You're right. That crappy can looks too good. Deathloop, no. These are all good guesses, though. But no, you guys are all wrong so far.
I have a game in mind, but I can't remember the name.
Yeah.
It was like the thing. It was like a follow-up almost to Portal, or the same Quantum something. I think the girl who was involved in the origins of Portal and had like a scientist guy on the cover. It was like a similar kind of idea, like a science experiment. Quantum Conundrum, that was it.
That's not it.
That's what I was thinking of.
Ashes in the Hourglass, you know what you're talking about. Octodad, no. 50 Cent, Blood in the Office, nope. Conundrum, nope. Cinetike, Matt giving hints to us. Well, not me. Any other guesses on this second image before we move on to the third? Going once.
Run Like Hell.
No, it's not Run Like Hell. Going once. To the Moon, no. Going once. Ghostwire Tokyo, no. Guesses keep rolling in from this image. That pink thing, it feels like might give something away.
Well, it looks like the pink thing seems to be a similar kind of ribbon that was the purple ribbon thing on the side of the wall in the first shot.
Yep.
I don't know what they are, though.
All right, looks like your guesses are done. Here we go to image number 3. In 3, 2, 1, go!
Geist.
Not Geist. That's a good guess. Outer Worlds, no. The Witness, no. Prey, no. 4 people have guessed Prey. Nope. Oh, we have a winner. It's Vinaraba with Tacoma. Good job, Vinaraba. I didn't know if anybody would get this one. I really didn't know. But what gave it away is what made you think it was Geist. Is the hand down in the bottom left there. You'll see as I go through.
I never played Tacoma.
Oh, you didn't?
So.
Well, here's image 4. And here is image 5, and this definitely would have given it away if anybody knew what Tacoma was. So that's what the humans look like in Tacoma. They have like these weird, like Orbeus appearances. Great job, Vinaraba. That's really. I'm going to give you another round of applause for getting that one because this was one of the tougher ones we've done for quite a while. Swan Senpai, pick games I've heard of. I'll be honest with you, I'm running out of games you've heard of. Seriously, we've been doing this for so long that it is becoming very difficult.
Start doing like old 16 and 8-bit games.
So when you go to
those are hard to find screenshots that you can zoom in on.
And they're like this big, and when you zoom in, they're just a blurry mess. Like there's a lot that goes into picking games for this. It's not as simple as you think. Just pick a game. Like you have to find screenshots of those games that are clear, and if you zoom in on them, they don't become a blurry mess, and you can't tell what they are. Like it's not as easy as you think. That's all I'm gonna say. And we can't just keep picking obvious games, Swan Senpai. We need to stray outside of the boundaries a little bit here and there. He got it. You didn't, but he did, and he won. And we didn't even make it to the 4th image, so I think it worked out okay.
Yeah, I know of Tacoma. I've heard of Tacoma.
I just never got around to it. It's not that obscure. Emperor Dread says, do obscure N64 You mean like Body Harvest? You're funny, Emperor Dread. Okay, well, that is it for GameFace episode 418.
And we didn't get to slam Suicide Squad again.
Yeah, I mean, there's not much to say there, other than they completely botched the landing.
Yeah, the fact that all the Justice League people were clones. That was it.
It's a joke.
Except Wonder Woman, who is actually dead.
It is
apparently.
the most ridiculous way to end a game ever.
Unbelievable. Wasn't it just like voiceover with like moving concept art? It wasn't even fully animated. It's like what a punt.
Yeah.
Well,
before we go, don't forget, we're supported 100% at patreon.com/sifted. For just $4 a month, you get all our content early. You get this show like 4 days early. You get Pactor Factor a week early. You get all our stuff at least 3 days early. Please go there if you can. We really need the help there. We really appreciate it. You can also just donate to us if you want to. Go to donate.sifted.net. You can put in any amount you want with any credit card, PayPal, whatever, in over 100 countries. You can just give us money there if you want to. If you don't have any money at all, help us out with Twitch Prime. If you're watching on YouTube, please go down below. Look at the description below. Figure out how to do it. If you're an Amazon Prime subscriber, you can give us a free $2.50 every month. It is free. It costs you nothing. Please do it. Once you sign up, it takes 3 seconds. And you have to do it every month. It rolls over every month. We'd appreciate it if you can do it. It makes a big difference for us. It would be awesome. Also, don't forget, we're shutting down here, and literally within 5 minutes or less, we're coming right back up with the SIFTD Fantasy Draft for Video Game Fantasy Draft for 2025. That should take us around 45 minutes or an hour to get through, and then we'll be done with our stream for the day. So thanks to everybody for hanging out with us today on the stream. As always, you made the show way better by hanging out with us and giving us factoids and stuff that we missed. This is for Video Games. Thank you for Twitch Prime. I see you getting in there at the end. I didn't miss it. So anyway, thanks, guys. Don't forget, we're going to break down for a couple minutes and come right back up with the SIFTD Video Game Fantasy Draft. Don't leave. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next week. GameFace is up and out.